Good morning, everyone. It looks like everybody is in a very good mood. However, we now have quorum. The deputy mayors have arrived, and most important counselor perks are here, but your chair's here. Okay, we are ready to start. And of course, my name is Mayor Olivia Chow, and I'm the chair of the executive committee. We have quorum. I'm now calling meeting 11 to order. Welcome, everyone. And today's meeting is held by video conference and in person at City Hall in committee room number 1. And this meeting is also being streamed live online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, the committee would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including Mississauga of the Credit, Anishinaabe, Chippewa, and Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. If you are registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name, and I will call speakers in order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Executive Committee page at Toronto/Council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. And members, the city clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on CMP. They are available to assist if you need so. If you want to submit motions, we are here to help. Are there any declaration of interest? Seeing none. And may I have a motion to confirm the minutes on the meeting of December 5th, 2023? Councillor Perks, all those in favor, carry, thank you. We will now run through the agenda. And items being held, page 5. Okay. First item, 11.3. Just 1 second. 11.1. The Municipal non-resident speculation tax on foreign buyers of residential property. I am sure no one is holding it. Whoa.
I'll move it.
Wow. Okay. Councillor Ainsley.
I'll get the ball rolling.
The ball, yes, all those in favor, opposed, carry, thank you. Oh, this is going to be a great meeting. Toronto, City of Toronto Environmental and Social and Governance Annual Performance Report. Staff recommendation, there is a speaker, you're right. The next item, development charge complaint at 615 Kennedy Road, there's a speaker. Item 4, donations from private giving foundation to the City of Toronto's Robertson House Emergency Shelter, in which we are extremely grateful.
I'll take that money.
Okay.
I'll move that recommendation.
The budget chief will move that motion, and all those in favor with gratitude. Thank you. Item 5, applications to the Imagination, Manufacturing and Innovation and Technology Property Tax Incentive Program. It's a staff report. Councillor Fletcher have moved it. All those in favor, thank you. 11 carried. 11.6, there are speakers. We'll hold that. 11.7, Finch West Light Rail Transit Train Operating and Service Term Sheet. Good news story. We have an operating agreement funding through the New Deal to open Finch West LRT
Hey.
when it's ready. When it's ready.
Yeah,
It's coming soon. soon, this year. We have money to operate it. Who would like to move that motion? Oh, right, Councillor Deputy Mayor Morley. All those in favor of the Finch West Light Rail Transit. Thank you, carried. 11.8, there is speaker on RapidTO. Let me ask, the councilors want to see a presentation or you know it well? Okay, you don't need to see a presentation. Councilor Matlow would like this item dealt with. Yes, Councilor Bradford?
Well, I think that many of us have been briefed. I think it would be helpful for the public who are deputing to understand what it is that they're speaking to better.
Okay, yes, because there are a few deputants on that one. I'm going to, sorry, Councilor Perks will have a presentation, okay? A brief presentation from staff. And I'm moving this item as the first item, if that's okay, because Councilor Matlow want to, we need to do 11.3 first, okay? But it's just one speaker on that one. And then the next item is this one, because you need to deal with it, and you have a motion, you want to do it before lunch, right? Okay? All those in favor of this motion to move it ahead? RapidTO, it's, and there's quite a few speakers on it. 11.9, advancing the George Street Revitalization Project update and next steps. We are
Hold that.
bringing it back. Okay. Councillor Ainsley. And item 10 is the Toronto Police Board response to dealing with patrolling Jewish communities and responding to hate crime since October 7th. Deputy Mayor Cole, would you like to move, receive? Oh, pardon me, there is
I'd like to hold it.
Yeah, okay, there's also two speakers. Okay, and that one is held. Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Is the speaker on item 3, Mary Ellen Bench from Denton's? This is regarding development charges. Are you here? May I invite you to come and give us your opinion, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Geez, I wish I need a place like that so badly. Yeah.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Mayor and members of committee. With me today, I have Wayne Long, who's the director with the company, and also Arjang Zadnadia, the president, is here as well. If there are any questions, they can help you. The owner of this property intends to develop a 215-unit building at the site, and 190 units have been sold already, with sales going back to 2021. Purchasers are extremely concerned about the project not proceeding, and some have sought to cancel, given that many other projects have recently canceled. The project is in limbo now because of the city's demand for an additional $2.5 million in development charges that has created issues with financing the construction.
Yeah, that's right.
It is our position that this request is not fair. Our position is based on timing and circumstances that happened before the new development charge rates came into effect. The increase in the development charges, along with the $200,000 a month in carrying costs on this project and increased construction costs, as well as higher interest rates, have made financing this project very challenging. In the materials provided, we have provided significant background, including a chronology of all of the dates at issue. We're here today because the Development Charges Act provides an appeal to you of a staff decision in determining how development charges are to be paid and applying the city's development charges bylaw. It also authorizes you, after reviewing the evidence and hearing our submissions, to rectify any determination or error made. So we are asking you to exercise your authority in this case and determine that the development charges paid are appropriate. as I mentioned, this is a case where timing is critical because the development charges that went into effect on Monday, May 1st, 2023, created the problem, a significant increase of $2 million at the time and now $2.5 million. City staff do not take issue with the fact that development charges in the amount calculated by the city were paid before the development charge rate increase. City staff in their report quote the bylaw and say that because community benefits charges were not paid, a building permit could not be issued, and therefore an additional $2 million was required to be paid. City staff told us about that on May 24th. City staff did not address the fact that my client met all the conditions that the city put in place to obtain a building permit in the development charges agreement, or the fact that a building permit should have been issued as a result. The development charges agreement was signed April 20th, and it says, and I quote, "This is the entire and only understanding between the parties relating to the payment of development charges in respect of the development as authorized by the building permit." It does not address community benefit charge. A conditional building permit agreement was also entered into on April 20th that says development charges must be paid before issuance of a development permit. And as a new last-minute condition, this was added. It was brought to my client's attention at 4:11 p.m. on a Friday. My client could not pay the charge on the Saturday or Sunday because the city's processes to pay are very specific. You can't go online and make a payment for an amount like this. You can't go to a counter and make a payment like this. So the first opportunity to pay was Monday. The payment was made on Monday. Staff have agreed. And while the city accepted that payment, they 3.5 weeks later said additional development charges were required. No opportunity was given to pay the community benefit charge, and payment of the development charges was made prior to the change. So we dispute the comments in the financing report about being told about the requirement to pay development charges. This is a situation where the amount paid followed what was required. City processes changed. So in the old days when Section 37 was paid, all of the charges were calculated by the same department and everybody knew what the rules were. Here's the charges were split between departments and it created confusion and misunderstanding and wrong information being given to my client until it was too late. As I said, 4:11 on a Friday did not allow us to make a transfer to the city in the methods that the city would allow until Monday. So we are asking you to rectify the situation. It's unfair that my client be penalized in this way because of the chaos that ensued over this time. We respect that city staff tried their best, but there was a lot of confusion and it did influence my client. Mr. Long was the
thank
party
you.
who was participating in all of that and confirm or add.
Pardon me, your times are up. I let you go on for an extra minute and a half. Thank you for your deputation. It's fairly clear. Is there any questions to the deputants? Anyone? Okay, no. Any question to the staff? Councillor Carroll. Sorry, pardon me. Is there anyone else that want to make deputation on this item? Nope. Okay, thank you very much for your time. Okay. Councillor Carroll, you have a question to our staff?
Yeah, just quickly, in the report that we have before us, it says that several calls were made leading up. This is one it's right on the cusp of the deadline, and the issue is between the DCs, but they were also required to pay the CBC. In the report, it talks about several attempts to communicate with the applicant leading up to the deadline. Do we have that documented? And was it made clear that both things were a condition of meeting the deadline, both the DCs and the CBCs?
Through the chair, I can advise that my managers were,
Who's speaking? It's right there.
What? Oh. I couldn't understand Councillor Brooks' sign language. So, oh, there's money people over here, but there you are.
Councillor, I can advise that staff have been in contact with the applicant on several occasions prior to the DC's being increased and when the application was ready for issuance. In fact, two managers were in contact with the applicant to advise of the payment of the CBCs as well as the DCs.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other questions to, Councillor Ainsley?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure which staff to ask this about, but the deputant said they tried to pay online, which they can't, and there's no counter for them to pay at. What's the policy around paying online for something like this?
Through the chair, the process is through electronic fund transfer, and those instructions are usually sent to the applicant via staff. The memo with respect to the CBC amounts was sent on April the 18th, well in advance of the May 1st deadline, and which advised what that process would entail.
So the deputant could have paid this amount online?
Not online,
Deadline?
not online, but via an electronic transfer fund through the bank.
All right, okay, thank you.
Any other questions to the staff? Nope,
Madam
okay.
Mayor, if I can add to
No, I'm
that.
sorry, you've done the deputation, it was 5 minutes. It's now in front of the committee. Anyone moving the staff recommendations or any other recommendations? Councillor Carroll?
Yeah, I'll move the staff recommendations. I just needed to clarify that we had documented those approaches, and I'm satisfied. I'll move the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. Carried. Next item, the RapidTO. Is the staff available to make a presentation? And may I ask, how long is your presentation? And are the deputants here? There are, okay, later, okay, there are deputants that will be here later, okay? There's a few deputants on this one, okay.
Good morning, Mayor. Our deputation, I'm sorry, our presentation is about 5 minutes. So we'll keep it brief.
Thank you, go for it.
6 minutes, maybe.
RapidTO it is, we're ready for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and members of Executive Committee. The RapidTO Surface Transit Network Plan is here before you for endorsement at a plan level. Over the next few minutes, I'll review what the Surface Transit Network Plan is, about the process that it took to get here in terms of the public engagement that's taken place, an update on a few roadway-specific studies that have been completed, and identify 3 additional roadway-specific studies that we intend to initiate with your endorsement in the near term so that we can move forward on feasibility study, design, and community consultation before coming before you as council in the future to seek approval for implementation. We've been working closely with the TTC to develop this plan to deliver safe, efficient, and equitable bus service and streetcar service improvements. While we often talk about the big moves in terms of rapid transit, surface transit is a real engine for moving people around the city on buses and streetcar within the subway network and to trips without that. About 70% of transit riders include surface transit in their trips. The goal of this plan is to make the service more reliable, reduce delays, and shorten travel time, and make surface transit more attractive and practical for use by everyone. The Surface Transit Network Plan is aligned with many city policies and plans, including the official plan, our poverty reduction strategy, TransformTO, of course, and several others. It's an essential tool to create inclusive society and equitable access to employment, healthcare, community services, and mobility around the city.
How are you guys doing?
The process here has been that we've gone through a multi-phase consultation strategy to identify the goals of the Surface Transit Network Plan and seek feedback on the terms under which projects would be identified to be pursued. We've done the first phase about understanding people's priorities, where we undertook community group consultation and some technical analysis. A second phase of identifying priority roadways and seeking feedback on those. And then here we are at reporting to Executive Committee. We would then be moving forward with roadway-specific studies for particular projects with deep public engagement to understand the options as well as the impacts along those corridors, involving you and your councillor offices about what that consultation strategy looks like. We're creating an implementation plan with phased approaches to deliver projects as quickly as possible, and monitoring and evaluating those projects for continuous improvement. I mentioned we went through some consultation. There were 2 phases. 82% of survey respondents were supportive of those highest scoring roadways and moving forward with quick implementation of these projects. We had over 7,000 responses to our survey and 200 people engaged in virtual and community group meetings. So the next steps are to undertake these roadway-specific studies. This map includes 20 roadways across the city in red and another 27 in blue that would be identified for potential future long-term planning. This map also identifies the way that these routes would serve neighborhood improvement areas important for the equity goals of our city. The transit solutions that we would be doing here are very specific to the corridors that we would be undertaking the work on. So there may be queue jump or bus bypass lanes, signal priority, or as far as doing curbside bus lanes, similar to what you see on RapidTO Eglinton East. So it's a menu of different transit priority options and exploring which of those tools are applicable and would be most beneficial with least impact on the corridor that we're looking at. While we're doing those studies for roadway-specific work, we also are working on quick wins for short-term improvements to surface transit around the city, including queue jump lanes in particular locations in partnership with TTC, improving accessibility at transit stop locations, signal priority at 50 locations annually, and in more measures to improve the regulatory environment for transit to move around the city, like changing parking regulations at key locations. So there are a few quick updates within this report about particular corridors. Eglinton East has been completed, and we're continuing to expand on that and monitor it. Jane Street is a project that we have underway as a study, and further consultation will take place in first quarter this year, with a report to come back to council process later this year to seek approval for implementation of options that the community has had an opportunity to provide us feedback on. We've been working with partners in York Region and Vaughan and Markham, as well as Metrolinx, on options for Steeles Avenue, particularly between Bathurst and Bayview, because this is a focus area of Metrolinx. So there's some feasibility study work underway there, and this report concludes an update. And we also are undertaking a feasibility study for complete streets along Victoria Park Avenue, and this report provides an update on that as well, indicating that surface transit may be a key improvement that we can achieve there. What this report is asking for, to just conclude, is endorsement in principle of the Surface Transit Network Plan. Staff have brought this forward through the council process a couple of times before and been sent back for further engagement. We believe this report provides you with a summary of what we've heard from the public on that engagement. We're seeking that endorsement from you as executive committee and council so that we can have that policy level, plan level support to move forward on those corridor specific works. It's also seeking your endorsement to initiate 3 more roadway-specific studies in addition to the ones that have been identified in the presentation as underway. So Finch Avenue, east between Victoria Park and McCowan, Dufferin between Wilson and Dufferin Gate, so quite a long stretch, and Lawrence Avenue east between Victoria Park Avenue and Morningside. So endorsement on being able to initiate those studies would go a long way to being able to get us closer to RapidTO in more locations around the city. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, comprehensive. I am very grateful, thank you. Hang tight, anybody have any questions? Councillor Carroll and then
Oh,
Ainsley.
did you want to do deputations? and
Oh,
then-
I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead, how dare I?
Privilege,
Yes, we do have speakers.
point of privilege.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McKelvey has encouraged me to remark that that was rapid presentation.
We had the
RapidTO
briefing, there were
presentation.
about 15 minutes of presentation that we did in 6. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have Speaker August Perineff. You are here, August. Come on in. You have 5 minutes. And after yourself is Balal Akhtar. And
Okay. Can you hear me? Wonderful. Hello, my name is August. I'd like to thank the councillors and the mayor for having me here today. I am here speaking on behalf of TTC Riders, a group fighting for better transit here in the city of Toronto. And I'm also speaking as a transit rider myself who depends on transit every day to get everywhere. So just to take a little step back, I grew up in North York. I grew up on Jane Street, just south of Finch. I took the 35 Jane bus to school every day in the 2000s and in the 2010s, both to elementary school and to middle school, and it was kind of the way I learned my own independence. It also helped me get to my friends on the weekend. It was really a lifeline for me. Back then, the bus was slow, it was overcrowded, and it wasn't uncommon that I had to miss the bus and wait for another bus. And mind you, this was several years ago. Today, I've moved many places, but now I live on Lawrence West and near Yonge. Sometimes I go back to Jane Street, and the bus hasn't gotten any better. It's even slower, it's even more crowded. And there's a lot of new changes, sure. There's express buses now, which is pretty great. There seems to be more buses in the schedule. However, I don't find myself waiting any less than I did back when I was in middle school. And it's kind of brings up to this point. Now I live on Lawrence West, and it's more of the same story. I was even more disappointed when I learned that Jane Street was slated to get bus lanes back in 2021 as part of the RapidTO plan released in 2020. 3 years later, and no changes have actually been made. And the bus is even more of a disaster. This is why I'm here to urge city councilors to put the rapid in RapidTO, speed up consultations, engineering and design work of RapidTO corridors across the city so we can get paint on the ground as soon as possible. We need a bold and ambitious plan to speed up buses and streetcars across the city. And 2, we are urging you to provide a clear implementation timeline for RapidTO corridors and adhere to this timeline. I mentioned Jane Street, but Steeles West and Finch Avenue East were supposed to have RapidTO lanes in place by 2023. And Dufferin and Lawrence East were supposed to be in place this year.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yes. Better, thank you. Let's keep going.
Thank you.
We're listening very intently. Maybe you can lean closer to the mic so that, so we could hear you even better. Keep going, thank you.
Okay. This committee needs to push for an ambitious plan to speed up buses and streetcars and cut through traffic congestion in the city. After all, over 1 million trips per day are made on the buses and streetcars here every day. That's more than the subway. Putting transit first means a bold plan for RapidTO, and that puts the environment first, transit riders first, and provides reliable transit to Toronto's working-class neighborhoods, just like the one I grew up in and the one I live in now. I also want to make a note that we are happy to see that the TTC is increasing service, and it's a 2% increase for next year on the bus and streetcar network. However, I do want to bring up that staff reported 2 weeks ago that half of this percentage increase is actually to account for congestion. So it's really to maintain existing service amid growing traffic. Traffic congestion is a serious issue. It's making transit slower and more unreliable, and meaning that even when we do increase service hours, we're not actually seeing a meaningful improvement to service. When RapidTO lanes were added to Eglinton East, Kingston, and Morningside, riders saved an average of 11 minutes per day, and buses were 12% more reliable. Meanwhile, there was a negligible impact on travel times for car commuters. Implementing lanes in priority across the city not only means faster buses, it means more frequent service as well, with less crowding and more reliability and more happy transit riders like me. It also means that every dollar that goes towards operating the TTC, running our buses and our streetcars, goes much further in providing better transit service. Because every bus and streetcar that's stuck in traffic, we're spending more to operate. It's more expensive, and it's also not making riders happy. I'll conclude by urging the committee to put the Rapid back in RapidTO. Whether through more resources or staffing, prioritize work to get RapidTO corridors installed. We need this. 2 to 3 years per corridor is slow. We've seen in other cities like Montreal, Boston, Seattle, San Francisco that bus lanes can be implemented pretty quickly. In San Francisco, they've implemented 25 kilometers of lanes since 2020, and even more this year. So Toronto's a bit behind, but we can do this. In April 2022, the TTC board approved bus lanes to serve the Scarborough RT replacement buses and implemented them just over a year later. We need the same urgency to prioritize transit on corridors like Dufferin and Jane, which see even more riders in the RT corridor. Please push the speed up design, consultation, and implementation of RapidTO corridors, and please provide a clear timeline for implementation of these corridors. Thank you.
Thank you for your very thoughtful, comprehensive deputation. Any questions to the deputants? Councillor Carroll.
Just one, because you're looking for really clear timelines, but on the lines where we still need a round of consultation, TTC riders would accept us setting that implementation deadline, the hard deadline, as soon as we finish consultations. Would that be fair?
We would like to see implementation happen as soon as possible. We would like to see paint on the ground for these bus lanes and as soon as possible, because riders have been waiting far too long for priority on the streets. And
so where the consultation's already conclusive, then we could set hard dates or fund hard dates, whichever way you want to look at it. But those that need some consultation, we would set dates as soon as we had sign off on those. Because today we're just agreeing in principle. So where there's steps still to be taken, you'd be watching us for the in principle when it comes back needs to have committed implementation dates.
yes, we'd like to see committed implementation dates and meaningful progress made.
You bet. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, August.
Nope, thank you so much. Next deputant, Bilal Akhtar, I believe is online, probably on the phone.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak, and thank you to staff for bringing this item on RapidTO, bus lanes and speeding up surface transit across Toronto to Executive Committee. My name is Bilal. I am a resident of downtown Toronto. I do not own a car. Now, while I realize that most of these roadways are not in downtown, I still use surface transit very extensively to enjoy the extensive food scene that our suburbs have to offer, and that the entire city has to offer. And a shout out to all the shawarma places on Lawrence East, which is an identified roadway. I just had to get that in there. But I could talk about making RapidTO more rapid, but August right before me has made that point very, very well, so I don't need to repeat it. But one thing that we do need to, this can often be perceived as, is this is about prioritizing transit riders over drivers. I really want to reject that framing because that is not what's in front of you as politicians, as councillors. The issue that Toronto faces right now is we don't have like one go-to mode of transport that is stress-free, that is fast, that's reliable, that works for everyone. The driving in most of Toronto is only going to keep getting worse as our city grows, as it needs to, and as we welcome more and more neighbors. And there's more roadway construction, Gardner redevelopment, like lots of different things that are going to keep making driving much worse than it is today. That's for the people who even have driving as an option, which is not many people in our city. Transit has gotten slower and slower and slower, and like August said, the TDC is budgeting more service hours just to account for transit slowing down, just to account for all the traffic congestion slowing down, slowing down transit. So we're in a situation where driving is getting worse, transit is getting worse. So unless you happen to live on a subway line or a GO train line, you don't really have a very easy way to get around. And if your destination is not on a GO line or a subway line, well, then even if you live on those lines, you don't get, a fast way to get around the city. So this item, and really about making RapidTO faster and really about pushing RapidTO forward, what's on your table is this is the right way to get around all of Toronto, not just within some parts of downtown and midtown, but this is the best way to get around all of Toronto. And like August said, RapidTO also saves money because if we run our service faster, we don't need to budget as many service dollars to serve the same amounts of riders. So this is a huge efficiency increase. Whatever money you're spending in RapidTO, you're going to save that in TDC operations down the line. So what am I asking you to do? I'm going to ask you to look at an example right next to me, which is the King streetcar pilot that happened a couple years ago. We didn't do endless rounds of consultation for that. We just went ahead and did it as a city and evaluated it after the fact. It worked great. There is academic literature out there that shows that people are resistant to change, but once you do the change, then they do start to really enjoy it and are resistant to changing back. You probably want to take advantage of that and accelerate implementation as quickly as possible. The consultations have already happened. There was a consultation last year when we elected Mayor Chow. Mayor Chow stands for Faster Transit. That was our consultation, the mayor election. We can, for all the roadways that have been identified, we can accelerate implementation as quickly as possible. We can even save money on some of those very specific option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 consultations. Just implement one of them, see how it behaves. If there's some issues identified during implementation, you address them in the next phase. You come back and correct course. But that is what we need. We need to make transit the best way to get around Toronto before the climate crisis envelops us, and before we keep spending more and more money on the TDC to serve fewer and fewer people with more and more delayed trips. That's all I've got to say. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much for your deputation. Any questions to deputants? If not, our next speaker is Philip Pananaktiscu, which is the TDC Riders Advocacy Group. Philip, there you are. Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Sorry, is this the right mic?
Yeah, press the button in there.
Hi, everyone.
Yep, got it.
Good morning, Council. My name is Philip Panaytescu. I'm a student living over in Scarborough Rouge Park, and I'm speaking with TTC Riders Advocacy Group.
Come closer to the mic so we can hear you better.
Yeah. My name's Philip. I'm speaking with TTC Riders Advocacy Group. I'm a student living over in Scarborough Rouge Park. As an East Scarborough resident, I think it's needless to say that transit takes up a massive amount of my time in order to reach almost anywhere else in this city. When I was a bit younger, I'd often commute over to North York, and my suggested route would generally be 85 Shepherd East. However, given the horrific amount of congestion present on Shepherd during rush hour, I started reverting over to the parallel 939 Finch route to avoid some of this traffic. Despite this, the route started taking just about as long due to the congestion spreading over time from one alternative route to the next. In a press conference just last week, TTC Riders has nominated 39 Finch the 4th slowest bus of those nominated for RapidTO priority bus lane implementation. coming in at an average of 18.4 kilometers per hour. And yet, despite this ridiculous average service speed, of 5 proposed enhanced priority bus lanes selected for RapidTO, only Eglinton Avenue East was enhanced way back in 2020. I'm asking that council speed up the implementation of RapidTO priority lanes for buses and streetcars, in particular for the 39 Finch Avenue East bus. Presently, about 70% of TTC boardings are on surface routes. Most commuters living in Toronto's inner suburbs are relying on buses to get to work, to medical appointments, to school. And yet now the city is telling us that the 5 proposed RapidTO lanes will require a design and consultation phase of 2 to 3 years each. Jane Street's 35 bus route was intended to have paint on the ground in 2021, Steeles West and Finch East in 2023, Dufferin and Lawrence East this year. We are years behind schedule in terms of providing faster bus transit in this city. This affects well over 1 million commuters a day. And this does not just affect commuters, this affects the amount of money the city spends to deal with traffic congestion as well. The recent budget proposes a 2% service increase to streetcar and bus service, with half of that allocated towards traffic congestion. The city is literally losing money running extra vehicles during rush hour by not providing dedicated lanes, which could provide a way more service for the same operations funding. The National Association of Transportation Officials estimates that dedicated lanes can move 4,000 to 8,000 commuters an hour, over 2 times the amount possible in mixed traffic with frequent buses. Previous context proved that the TTC is fully capable of rolling out priority bus lane projects in short periods of time. When Line 3's decommissioning was announced in February 2021, bus lane alignments on Midland gained approval in April 2022 and became operational for 903 replacement buses around the time of the August derailment. The Eglinton East lanes were approved in July 2020 after and installed fall of that year. Multiple other Canadian cities are far ahead of Toronto's tiny 24.8 kilometers of dedicated surface routes. That's including streetcars, not just buses, with Montreal having 306 kilometers of bus lanes and Vancouver 138. I've personally felt the effects of the 10 to 20 minutes saved per commute, up to 40 minutes a day saved, taking there and back, taking the 905 on Eglinton East between UTSC and Kennedy Station. On Jane Street, the 35 or 935 route has the capacity to carry as many 24,800 people per day, comparable to the former Line 3's ridership numbers as of 2022. In conclusion, I'd like to relate my concerns over RapidTO to the recently delayed Line 3 replacement Scarborough Busway. The fact that the TTC board has not only decided it was fine to abruptly remove a connection from a regional bus hub to a terminal subway station without much communication to commuters, but also recently confirmed a delay for the replacement busway of 2 years is beyond neglectful. It is borderline hostile on those who rely on transit. I personally learned about the intended closure of Line 3 from TTC riders' posters placed in the area, not from the TTC, not from the city. If this pattern of what is essentially austerity policy repeats itself with delays to capital investment and service downgrading over the next 5 years or longer, the city is taking literally hundreds of thousands of hours from the lives of suburban commuters. So council, as my colleague has said before me, please actually put the rapid in RapidTO and speed up the consultation so that we can get paint on the ground ASAP. Thank you.
We hear you. Thank you. Questions to the deputant? Put the rapid back to rapid. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Gregory Karastaragus, pardon me. Pardon me. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Close up. Thank you, Madam Mayor and the members of the Executive Committee. My name is Gregory Karastaragus. I'm a student at Seneca Polytechnic Newnham, studying to be a chartered professional accountant. Like the majority of students, I regularly take the TTC to where I need to go. Therefore, it is important that the TTC remains reliable and efficient. Over the past few years, there has been a severe lack of needed improvements made to Toronto's rapid transit infrastructure, which has been very disappointing. Today, I would like to express my support for expanding the RapidTO bus lane program. This system will improve the reliability of public transit and reduce travel times, all at minimal cost. Furthermore, this system will encourage more people to take public transit over other methods, which will reduce both gridlock and carbon emissions. In particular, I support building the RapidTO bus lanes on Finch Avenue East, which is commonly used by the students of the Newnham campus. The buses there are in very high demand and are constantly at capacity, no matter what time of day it is. In fact, students waiting for the bus often have to wait for the next one because the current one is so full. So having dedicated bus lanes with improvements to the capacity is very much needed by this point. Toronto's transit system has been infamously lacking for a city of its class, meaning that it is crucial that we build the necessary infrastructure in a timely manner to improve the TTC and ensure that it is reliable for everyone who depends on it. Therefore, I support building more bus lanes under the RapidTO program, and I call upon the city to make this project a priority.
Excellent. Good deputation.
Thank you.
Questions? We hear you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a very nice day, madam.
We will. It's off to a good start. Next speaker, Rebena Sapadar, and I see her online.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Rebena Subadar. I'm a user of the 35 Jane and the 29 Dufferin routes. Before I speak on the 35 Jane, I want to say something quick about the 29 Dufferin. It's incredibly slow with so much potential to be a fast route. This is the case with every bus route. On a good day, I can get downtown from Black Creek in an hour using Dufferin. But if I take Dufferin, I'm imprisoning myself to a 2-hour commute because I know it's a gamble. When my commute takes me 2 hours consistently, I abandon my ridership on the TTC a little bit more because I can't rely on it. I cannot rely on city services when I feel like my dependency on these services are being taken advantage of. I use both lines to move around the city, but to mostly get me in and out from the downtown core into Black Creek. The 35 Jane bus is generational to me. When my mom was a cute little immigrant lady living in Jane and Finch, just trying to find her footing in the city to take care of her kids, it was the 35 that kept her safe as she did so. It was the 35 who watched over my mom when her 3 kids when she could not drive. She used almost every stop. It was hard for her sometimes having to both manage everything at every time. She would move around and still find safety points to cross. But this was 24 years ago. I find myself feeling the same things my mom felt back then when I use a 35 now, except it's busier, which is understandable. 35 is generational to many. I organize with so many seniors in passing, so many people who are getting older, and so many youth who are growing up using the 35. We've grown up depending on this busway to move us through our lives. RapidTO bus lanes are long overdue for Jane Street. It's unreasonable for consultations to take 2 to 3 years more before implementation can even just be considered. I know every bus route is different. I've used the 35, 36, 60, 165, 29, 84. I can list so many that it'll be like I'm reading a lottery ticket. And they all move us around differently. So consultations are justified, but with Jane Street, you will be over-consulting us. I'm brought back to February 2023, when we were organizing in Jane Finch Mall, which is now threatened by private development, to inform residents about the RapidTO survey and collect feedback so that residents can express how they feel about the designs. And after community organizers breaking down a ridiculously overcomplicated survey, for one, us to understand, and 2, so that something community can understand, we saw 2 main things. Community wants the bus lanes because it would mean faster service, more reliable commutes, and it would help to account for no standing room. And 2, being our biggest concern, is the removal of local neighborhood stops in Jane Finch area rather than accommodate and invest into community needs for pedestrian crosswalks. I was then told by community organizers that consultations by RapidTO have been done since 2019, and we're saying the same things then as we are now. and will continue to say the same things during this process of the city's over-consulting. We want bus lanes, but not at the cost of our accessibility, not at the cost of rider accessibility. RapidTO as is not creating an equitable service. This is creating a further delay on improving services we need improved. We need better specifications about which bus stops are planned for removal as part of the RapidTO plan versus which stops are planned as part of Vision Zero. And then we need community needed accommodations invested into. We also want the name to stay true and get this rapid going in RapidTO because right now it's very much slow TO. RapidTO lanes were promised to Jane Street since 2021. We're now in 2024. That if this current plan for RapidTO is approved today as it is, Jane Street can expect completed bus lanes by 2030. That is too long for one route. There is no need to make RapidTO lanes take almost as long as a crosstown LRT, which is a much more demanding project. We're simply asking for paint on the ground in Jane Finch area. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your your deep experience with all these buses and about what your mom experienced 24 years ago. We hear you. Our next deputant is Hamish Wilson. Here in person.
Yes, good morning. It's a treat to be here. And I'm thinking back a few years ago when I was doing a deputation to the former executive committee, and it struck me it was all male. Wow. So I'm glad we have some change, much change. And this is a good start to actually work on, again, please, if this could get on. Getting to a lot of on-road change, because in theory, having the busways is excellent, 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 and long overdue. And I'm thinking of the example of Curitiba in Brazil, which had the political will to displace cars and made a huge difference for the mobilities of all that city at 1% of the cost of a subway system. When it's done well, we can really, really have a huge difference. Maybe there's a power that needs to go on. This is, I splurged on, yeah, sure, thank you. Okay, now I know, press that button. This is the NACTO Street Design Book. It's maybe beyond just merely 4,000 to 8,000 people. It could actually be a huge number of people that can get moved, paying customers that could get moved by proper transit ways. It seems that we've been sort of making sure that the slowest, most inefficient way that actually creates congestion has had a lot of respect. And people need their cars sometimes and their trucks, absolutely. But we've tended to subsidize and cater to them a little bit too much. So yes, it's a batch of change and disruption, and I'm sure that probably wasn't convenient at all for the people of San Francisco. But again, the efficiencies, and you can't see it, but the efficiencies of having better, faster transit on Transitway, that's real. The trouble is that many of our roads are rather on the tight side, especially in the older core. I don't have the experience of knowing what the more suburban north of St. Clair or Eglinton roads are. I really don't know. So please listen to the people out there. My sense is that they're more arterials. So change them quickly, please. We're in a climate emergency. So it shouldn't take forever to do it. Now, recently I've had an idea. Well, in the narrow streets, can we think of stealing an idea from Jarvis Street and making a two-way lane, a shared transit lane? Could that be possible? In the NACTO book, it doesn't have European experience. It's more North America, but the tight conditions I've seen in some European cities, they have streetcar sharing rails in some areas. Can we think of somehow doing this for bikes? I mean buses, and maybe on Lower Jane Street. again. Just a thought, please, let's think about it. So Dufferin Street is especially important to do quickly as a priority corridor, in my view, because we need that network connectivity that can be provided. Maybe it should have had a subway in the past decades. I think the ridership is high enough that we could have put a Dufferin subway, and that would have been in the more correct places than the Sorbara subway extension or the Scarborough subway extension, which is burying billions in my view, and not in the right places. So Dufferin's really important to get relief, network relief, and I'm sorry if we just have to push the cars aside, I'm sorry. But let's not forget about bikes either, because Dufferin for a cyclist is Deathrin Street, and it's not okay. I'm a bit of a skunk sometimes when it comes to some cyclists and some facilities. This is an old idea for a relief subway line that would have been in the right place going up to Dundas West. The rail trail, can we also think, please, of somehow squeezing in a busway on an off-road situation that would, or maybe it could be rail. I know it's complicated, I know it's controversial, but from Bloor to Queen, that might be something that could actually be possible, maybe. It's a wider corridor, and people in the cycling community sometimes don't like me, but I'm sorry, sometimes the highest best use of corridors is for transit. And on the north side of the tracks from Queen down to that's another thing. How am I doing for time? I'm probably running out. The other thing that should be done in terms of off-road is consider in Scarborough the use of a Gatineau hydro corridor for a busway. I think that was the cheap solution to squeeze the billions and provide faster service. If we actually had explored that, I think we could have had like an incredible amount of much superior service, almost in place by now, without spending the billions and all the disruption. There's an incredible amount of connection through Scarborough. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Councillor Bravo, a question, and then
Was there anything that you wanted to add that you didn't get a chance to say?
Thank you so much, because actually, this is something that I've shared through the years. Let's press this. Yes, in Vancouver, cars are subsidized. That's a big figure, $2,700 per car per year, 7 times the amount we subsidize public transit. And that's from like 96. So yes, congestion steals people's time, but it steals people that are on transit's time a bit more. And we need to somehow make sure that it's a more equitable city for everybody.
I do have a question around the notion of kind of prefiguring what's possible. Would you support, or do you see in other cities that sections are moved quickly so that people can see their effectiveness, or do we have to wait to do the entire line? Having
something done sooner and reasonably well sometimes, like quick wins, do make a difference. So I would suggest that you listen to people, listen to staff, and consider analyzing as well, if going back to stealing the Jarvis idea, are there imbalances in the travel flow coming in versus going out? Can you think of having a side of street busway to reflect that? It's complicated, but we can learn so much from other places. Maybe what we should do is hire people from Europe as consultants.
Yeah, thank you. We often hear that our streets are narrow, but in Latin America and Europe, there are many narrow streets that are accommodated, and certainly that would be the case in Montreal. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, again, it's not all what we can do. We've been forwarded around a little bit. Too many players.
Deputy Mayor Cole, you have a question?
Yes, I was looking over your notes there, and I noticed you had the Pape Street relief line there.
Yes.
They're looking at Dufferin. They're going to do these magic things on Dufferin. Have you ever thought of the viability of creating a subway relief line on Dufferin basically connecting the exhibition, the Ontario line, with the new Downsview station at Yorkdale. So, they're building subway lines all over the place, like the useless Eglinton West extension for $5 billion. Why not build a subway on Dufferin?
In the right place, to many degrees. Yes, absolutely, sir. And I was just thinking about that last night, in that, yes, a subway on Dufferin Street, and maybe cutting back some, but it's hard when you've got an existing facility to cut back on Spadina, but it's underused. And unfortunately, the way that the Spadina extension was constructed, we couldn't actually stop it at York University, the funding of it. It was all tied that it had to be a package from the province to get it up further north.
And the ridership is abysmal on that extension, right? There's nobody uses those stations.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at PAPE either. You know, the 1957 relief line that actually had twice the length of the Ontario line used Donlands, got up to Eglinton, also got out to Islington. Yeah, why don't we actually, we need to pry Metrolinx out from reporting to the mere government in power to reporting to the legislature. So that'd be a really good motion to
Or
come.
how about getting Metrolinx out of the building and the boondoggling of building and let the TTC go back to building?
In the right places, I'm sure, yes, exactly.
Okay, anyways.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So much, thank you, Hamish Wilson. Our next deputant is Lubaba Gamma. It's from video conference. Are you there? I see you online. If you want to turn on your camera, you could. You don't have to. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Chow and Executive Committee. That is a difficult deputation to follow. I don't have as many creative suggestions as my friend here, but I wanted to keep this brief and share my experience with 29 Dufferin. The 29 Dufferin is probably my most used bus route in my life. My neighbors, friends, coworkers rely on this bus route just as heavily as I do. It's heavily traveled, as mentioned, both by community members and riders connecting to other. 29 Dufferin is my connection to Line 2 in the streetcar network, but my bus is almost always packed at any hour of the day, but especially during work and school hours, meaning 7 a.m. work hours, not just 9 a.m. workers. I think it's important to note that the issue of RapidTO delays is a labor issue as well. When I get on the 29 Dufferin at 6:30 or 7 a.m., sometimes my bus is packed with workers, and the volume of riders on Dufferin Street makes it clear that there is no lack of need for a bus-only lane or some sort of transit corridor. Workers come to Toronto for opportunity, and we need to be able to get workers to their jobs and go about their day-to-day lives in an accessible manner. Dufferin Street, James Street, and countless others have been in need of transit and pedestrian-oriented traffic flow for years. I urge you all to recognize RapidTO as a labor and accessibility issue and to prioritize this as such. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Nope. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Jetwin Mock, who is here. Okay. Come on up. Press the button. You have 5 minutes. We ready for you?
Can you hear me? Yep.
Yep.
Thanks to City Council for being here and city staff. I really appreciate your time. I'm a University of Toronto student in my 4th year, and I use the TTC to go to school every single day. And for a long time, I also worked in a city, at the data and analytics team in the transportation services at the City of Toronto. And then I used TTC to get to work as well. I just want to start with the fact that whether you realize it or not, the TTC subway network is remarkable. Just line 1 of the subway carries more riders than Chicago's entire metro network. But that doesn't make that much sense, right? It sort of runs through these very low-density places that wouldn't be considered very friendly to transit. So how does it get its ridership? The answer is feeder buses. Feeder buses, in fact, make up over 71% of TTC ridership. That was a figure measured in 2006 by academic Paul Mies, and today that figure is cited to be much more than 71%. Not by car, not by walking, not by cycling, by bus. And buses, more specifically suburban buses, are the backbone of Toronto's transportation network. Dufferin, Finch, Steeles, and Jane all have bus routes busier than entire light rail networks in the United States. So I just want to emphasize how remarkable of an achievement that is. That is a magical amount of ridership in a suburban environment on transit. But the thing is, these buses are slow, they're overcrowded, they don't have enough priority. And if we really want to treat the buses like the backbone and the value to the city that they are, then we better give them some priority. The TTC is currently starved for operations funding, it has been for a while, and bus lanes would make these incredibly high-frequency routes more reliable and less expensive to operate. Bus lanes are also incredibly good for drivers. As prominent Vancouver former Chief Planner Brent Todarian said, sorry, I forgot the quote. But yes, thank you. He did say that if everyone's driving, no one's moving. So bus lanes are incredibly good for drivers. They're incredibly good for transit riders, who make up a large proportion of, I imagine, your constituency. And they're also good for the TTC, who needs more operations funding. So I find it quite disappointing that the RapidTO lanes, unlike the King Street pilot, which was executed very quickly and expediently, that they're undergoing massive amounts of community consultation, which the merits of which are questionable. Who comes to community consultations? Is it, the single mom with 2 kids who shows up at 3 p.m. at a school gym on a Monday? Or is it the retired, white, car-owning homeowner who has time on their hands to attend these meetings? So consultation is expensive, but bus lanes are cheap. They're made of paint. They can be put out incredibly rapidly. And if you deploy them, you can measure the data. You can see how they perform. You can see how many people the streets move. That's what we did for King Street Pilot. We set up these massive mile vision cameras to measure the data of the throughput on King Street. We aggregated the point of sale data from all the restaurants on King Street and saw that their business relatively, their economic performance went up. So why can't we do the same for long neglected suburban boroughs of Toronto? I urge City Council and staff to paint the lanes. No more consultations, because paint is cheap and consultation is expensive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question to deputants? We good? Thank you. Thank you for your time. Sheila Percy-Allen from TDC Riders.
Hello. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. And I'm going to share my time with Callum Houston because he was too late to register, but he takes the 54 Lawrence East, wants to talk about why RapidTO is important there. And I'm here to speak on behalf of TTC Riders. We're a membership-based transit advocacy group. I'll keep my comments really brief, but I just wanted to share how excited we were when we first heard about the RapidTO plan, because we thought it would happen, according to the timeline. And you've heard from a lot of other speakers here today about how long it has been the first time we heard about RapidTO was in 2020, and the first implementation was later that fall. And TTC riders, volunteers grew so frustrated with the slow timeline for RapidTO that some volunteers used children's paint to install a pop-up bus lane on Dufferin Street in fall 2022, just to show how simple it is to install transit priority. So you've already heard about, how far behind we are, and that if we take 2 to 3 years just to consult, in this council term, we may only see one more RapidTO lane, and that's so far behind when Jane was supposed to be implemented. But what no one has reminded you of as well is that when these were first conceived of, it was a pandemic response, July 2020, and other cities were fast-tracking miles of bus lanes, recognizing that essential workers are using the bus lanes. It's something that the Toronto Office of Recovery and Rebuild said, let's speed this up because it's so important for essential workers, and that continues to be true today. And so the last comment I'll make before I turn it over to Callum is just about, just some comments on process and consultation, which you've heard about from Jane Finch Action Against Poverty, that people have been over-consulted and haven't seen any action. They've been consulted for 3 years now. But related to that is, a lot of local residents have concerns about plans to remove bus stops. And we just wanted to share the advice based on what we've been hearing from riders, that it's important to be clear which bus stops are being removed as part of a RapidTO design and which are part of Vision Zero, because when there's a bus stop in the middle of a block and no safe crossing, the TTC would like to remove that to make it safer. That's a kind of a conversation about, are there enough resources to install a crosswalk, and conflating them has caused a lot of confusion. So we just want the clarity there so people understand what's being proposed when they're being consulted. So I'll turn it over to Callum.
So I have been taking the 54 for probably my whole life. I'm 27. And for different reasons, when I was, I used to work at a camp that was on Eglinton. I worked over in Scarborough Centre. And even back then, it would take me, to get to Scarborough Centre, it would take me over 40 minutes to get there from my place. Whereas if I took a car, it would take me about 10. So that's already quite a bit of time difference there. For people who do not have access to a car and who are reliant on public transit. I'd also say that the use of the 54, there are a large number of businesses that operate along that area, that corridor. So removing that whole line would also devastate all of those businesses, and Scarborough would be heavily impacted by that, which is something that they don't need to be losing more revenue. But as for the bus, we'd also like the rapid transit as well. I would like that to be pushed forward, not hung up on expensive consultations as well. And yeah, that's all. Thank you for the time.
Put the rapid back in RapidTO, as others have said.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you. Next speaker is Elton Campbell. Elton, are you online? In person? There you are. Have a seat. You have a Dufferin sign. Good morning.
Can you hear me? Okay, so I'm Elton Campbell, a student at York University and a volunteer at TTC Riders. Okay, if Toronto City Hall was located along the Dufferin 29 bus route or any of the other routes scheduled to have RapidTO since 2021, would there be such a delay to put the rapid in RapidTO? Or would we all be comfortable with wasting commute time and being chronically late for an important meeting such as this? I come forth with passion that the red paint that needs to touch down on Dufferin Street to put the rapid in RapidTO is long overdue and deserve to be fast-tracked. I was nicknamed 29 when I worked at Dufferin Mall because of constantly being late. Red alert, this is an emergency. Full-time students like me are losing the greens. Yes, money, to support us through school due to rejecting job opportunities and work shifts. We shouldn't have to do this due to unreliable TTC service times. Put the rapid in RapidTO. What's the point of having a 929 express bus if it is often stuck in traffic, usually with the 29 bus? Putting the rapid in RapidTO on Dufferin Street is the golden step towards getting these buses out of traffic, increase TTC ridership, and vastly reducing cars on the street, overall reducing carbon emissions. We want to get moving, but not at donkey cart and buggy speed at 10.6 kilometers per hour. Put the rapid in RapidTO. I mentioned the colors red, green, and gold. One love. But I'm not feeling the love from TTC. I'm not a Rastafarian. I just haven't gone to the barber shop yet because it is impossible to get a haircut and attend medical appointments and do other time-sensitive businesses on my free day. As a commuter of the Dufferin bus, it's impossible to do all these activities on one day despite all these businesses located along Dufferin Street. The Dufferin buses are slow. Put the rapid in RapidTO so commuters and businesses can stop suffering. Red, mayor and city councilors, reignite your passion for RapidTO. Gold, remember our green, please fast track the RapidTO on Dufferin Street. And gold, remember our ultimate goal is to improve TTC's profits while getting us commuters to our destination safely and rapidly. Please put the overdue rapid in RapidTO. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilor Bravo has a question.
Thank you so much for highlighting and the fact that Dufferin is, which runs through my ward, 10.6 kilometers per hour, number one slowest. We hear often that it's only like 4 minutes, 10 minutes, 15-minute delays, 20 minutes. You talked about the need to get from place to place, and what does that do for your family economy, your household, yourself, to have those kinds of delays? What do you have to get up? What is the economic cost to you?
It's quite a lot because as students, we have to rely on bursaries and OSAP, and that in itself is not adequate. But if we could be a bit more independent, where we can buy our textbooks, because some of my textbooks haven't been bought as yet, it would be a lot easier because I would be a little bit more independent and not pressuring OSAP and other funding that has been put in place. So other students who perhaps don't have the opportunities that I have would benefit from that. So I would be a lot more independent, able to buy food, not going to food banks, buying my textbooks, using the TTC a lot more because I would be making more money. So everybody would benefit from that.
Thank you. So no connection, not arriving on time means no job and no money.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Alton. Our next speaker is Hao Sen Chong from the Toronto Environmental Alliance, in person.
I've been told by my team that I need to take more photos of myself. So. That's great. So, yes. There we go. My name's Hausen. I'm the climate campaigner at the Toronto Environmental Alliance. I'm here to call on the Executive Committee and on City Council to significantly speed up the implementation of the city's RapidTO surface network plan, and particularly the 5 priority lanes that the previous mayor had promised would be completed by the end of this year. Toronto's Transform TO target calls for 75% of commutes to be by walking, biking, or transit by 2030, and that's 6 years from now. To get there, we need to be moving much faster on priority surface lanes than 1 lane every 4 years. The majority of TTC riders, and this cannot be stressed enough, it is the majority of TTC riders who depend on the system's surface routes. 70% of all TTC rides, 70%, include at least 1 surface transit route. I have been myself a surface transit route rider my entire life. When I was younger in Etobicoke, now when I'm downtown, I actually very rarely use the subway. And it is a mess up there. So it's an issue because these service routes are the slowest and the least reliable of the entire transit system. So that's according to the TTC's 2023 budget note that came out earlier this month. Priority surface routes, I don't know how to turn this on. There's a button.
I ask the staff to assist.
Yeah, brightness.
There you are, good.
I don't know if you can see that. That's not super bright, but anyways. I don't know if someone can come turn the light on here. But anyways, priority, this is an indication of what other cities are doing because priority surface transit lanes are extremely well used around the world. Toronto currently has about 24, 25 kilometers of priority surface transit lanes. So that includes 14.5 kilometers of dedicated streetcar lanes, half of which is currently out of service on St. Clair West. And it includes only 10.3 kilometers of priority bus lanes. Compared to Toronto's 10 kilometers of bus lanes, Montreal has more than 300 kilometers. Both London and New York have over 200 kilometers of priority bus lanes than we have here in Toronto. And Vancouver's TransLink system has over 100 kilometers of priority bus lanes. Vancouver is interesting. Every couple of years, they actually come out with a 100+ page bus speed and reliability report, which indicates the amount of resources that they're putting in for bus speed and reliability, because likely over there as it is here, it is the majority of transit users who use the bus. Priority lanes help transit in 3 major ways. Most of this has been indicated before. First, they increase speed. Dedicated bus lanes in the United States, such as New York, DC, and San Francisco, have been shown to reduce travel times by up to 30%. Second, dedicated transit lanes, they move more people. And so this has been shown before, earlier today, but I've highlighted the 2 lanes here. According to the National Association of Transportation Officials, which is what this is, 1 dedicated transit lane can move up to 8 times more people than when that lane is a mix of private cars and frequent buses. And then finally, dedicated lanes, they attract more riders. Fully painted transitways tell all commuters, including those in cars that have never taken transit, that there is high quality, high frequency transit in the area. In the 11 months after the implementation of the Eglinton East dedicated bus lane, ridership across the 4 routes that go through that lane increased nearly 30%. Granted, that was during COVID years, but that rate was far faster than what we were seeing in the rest of the system. The majority of councillors have supported moving quickly to implement the 10 priority bus and streetcar lanes that are supposed to be done by the end of 2026, by the end of this council. So we really would like for that to happen as quickly as possible if we're able to do that. The past summer's wildfires and the current abnormally warm winter weather, it is almost February and it's above freezing, This shows that we need Toronto's transformed TO climate goals, and the only way really to do that, well, not the only way, one of the key ways of doing that is accelerating the expansion of Toronto's priority surface transit lanes, including the ones that the previous administration had promised that would be complete by now. We need to transform TO, and in order to do that, we need to put the rapid in RapidTO.
We hear you. Thank you so much. Any questions? Councillor Carroll?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I just wondered if, because I note that the network, not that we aren't behind, we all agree with that point, but the number of kilometers does not include, I'm not sure if people saw that because it's kind of blurry, does not include the number that have been added to replace the RT ridership.
That's right.
All along Kennedy, out Ellesmere, which almost doubles it.
That's right.
So we still have a lot of ways to go.
That's right.
But I'm wondering if T has had any time to update that chart, because I don't know that our own staff have been able to provide the comparison
Right.
of cities. Is anybody working on an update to that?
So the chart between cities, you mean?
Yeah.
So that was research that, well, it was mostly me who did that. So I can pull that up again. And that chart is up to, there's various sources. So you'll see there's a source here in that. I don't know if staff could put that back on the screen. So in the third column is the source here. I can send this out to councilors if you'd like. There's a backgrounder that we have.
Oh, okay. So if we could get you the numbers of kilometers, we could update that chart and then we'd have a good real-time comparison.
Yeah, but also it's,
That would be
but
very
that Scarborough RT one, as far as I understand, is, I don't know to what extent, I'm not an expert in transit. I rely on our folks here in terms of what's happening with the Scarborough RT. But yeah, you're right. That number is not in this note right now. And,
Yeah.
that was very purposeful because it was only very recently,
Yeah.
very recently updated.
Yeah. So if we got you that information, we'd have a real up-to-date chart.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Nope. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Presentation. Last speaker, Graham Kennedy from 10 Block. He's online. Turn on your camera if you wish, or just speak. Graham, you're on.
Hi there. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank the Executive Committee for considering this item today. My name is Graham Kennedy. I'm an urban planner working in housing development with 10 Block. I'm here to share some information about 10 Block, our approach to transportation advocacy, and our interest in advancing RapidTO on Steeles Avenue West. 10 Block is a sustainable housing developer with a portfolio across Toronto spanning over 65 years. We are experienced in long-term community building and making transportation a key focus in all of the new communities that we serve. We are the owner and developer of 1875 Steeles Avenue West, near Dufferin and Steeles, where we are proposing 960 units. We are not alone in proposing development along Steeles. All along Steeles, property owners are finding ways to create more housing in a housing crisis. However, such growth cannot come without necessary upgrades to transportation infrastructure. Today, I am requesting the members of the Executive Committee to expedite the Steeles Avenue West study and to ensure that work advances concurrently with other corridors identified as high priority in the Surface Transit Network Plan. As a graduate planning student and young professional in an affordable apartment building on an eastern stretch of Eglinton, I relied heavily on buses to connect to the subway. Predictable, reliable bus service is crucial for myself and my neighbors to thrive during a disruptive time to be living on Eglinton. As we've heard from many students, others did not have the same quality of service. For me, every morning I would wait with the same people to get on the same bus, rain or shine. The frequency and volume of service we were able to experience on Eglinton made this process work smoothly. Buses that are frequent and consistent enough make a long commute manageable and allow for people to live further away from subways or higher order transit. And this meant that for me, I didn't have to rely on a car to get around, something I can't afford to do. So when RapidTO was announced in 2019, there was significant excitement along many similar corridors throughout the city. As a program, it has identified transit priority corridors that are significant, connective, and lacking in adequate bus service for those living in the area. Since then, it has felt like little progress has been made on improving the surface transit priority network. We've heard from the community, residents, and other stakeholder groups that Steeles Avenue West is important and that many commuters, both residents and workers in the area, rely on what has become one of Toronto's slowest bus lines. So slow, in fact, that just this past week, the TTC Riders, a local nonprofit who's deputed today, they awarded Steeles a bronze medal as a third worst route in the city. With more growth coming in this corridor, I'm urging the City of Toronto to get ahead of the curve on enhancing bus service in Steeles Avenue West. We need to begin studies today to meet the needs of this community tomorrow, to help existing residents and workers get where they need to be on a consistent and reliable basis, to help the corridor accommodate new growth with best-in-class bus service that promotes mode shift, and to strengthen the connectivity and resilience of our broader transit network by enhancing a connection between the subway lines at the north end of the city. We have greatly appreciated the opportunity to work together with Mayor Chow's office, Councillor Peruzza's office, Councillor Meyer's office, and numerous local and citywide stakeholder groups, hoping for better transit on Steeles Avenue West. We hope for approval from the committee today of looking at including Steeles in everything that's moving forward on this item. I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions of the deputy? No, seeing none. Thank you very much for sharing those thoughts with us. That concludes the deputations we have. Are there questions of staff? Councillor Morley, oh, actually we'll start with Councillor Myers.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So I guess the first question is, why has the RapidTO rollout been so slow?
Take that one. Through the mayor to Councillor Myers, while we've started down this path a while ago, and Eglinton East, I think, was the perfect example of a corridor where it was pretty straightforward to do. It was during the pandemic. It wasn't an impact specifically on the right-of-way. That is somewhat of a unique scenario. It is really important when we do these kinds of transformational projects that we do engage with communities, and we felt that our initial consultation was quite thorough, but when we brought the original plan back to council, we were asked to go back and do additional consultation, and that cycle repeated itself a couple of times. Right now, we have 4 corridors that are on their way towards design and coming back to the council with final reports. And we have 3 corridors that if council adopts this plan, we would move forward in that same venue. So these are transformational projects. We understand that people want the service right away and support that, and we would like to move as quickly as we can. I just think that the transformation is something that we're better off doing appropriate levels of consultation. I feel like we've done that now and we're ready to implement.
So is it fair to say that the degree of consultation being asked by council might be considered excessive and is actually holding up these projects?
Through the chair, this is a plan level endorsement that we're looking for today, and we've done citywide consultation on that plan, multiple iterations of that. So I think we're ready to move forward on the project level consultation, and the project level consultation, once we have this plan level endorsement, can be focused on really design details and not about if the project should happen at all. So I think that, I hope that answers your question to say that we'd like to keep the consultation short and effective so that we can move forward on the projects on a roadway specific basis.
So just to clarify, staff are ready to move ahead if council gets out of the way.
We're very much looking forward to council endorsement on this plan.
Great. Yes. So when do you think we could start seeing some of these red bus lanes going out on the road? Would it be possible to start seeing some of these lanes end of year, the 2024?
It's a challenging question because it will depend on how some of those corridors advance. But I will say that we have a proposed design for Jane Street, and we are looking forward to bring that project out to consultation with a proposed design, bring that back to executive, and if we have endorsement of that from council, then we could see red lanes go in this year for that project. The others, we're looking at some phasing and would like to see some segments that are easier go in as fast as possible, where it's red lanes and some signal changes, we could do that more quickly. Where there's more construction required for queue jump lanes, et cetera, that takes a bit longer.
So I have half of 39 Finch East. Half is in my ward, half is in Scarborough Agincourt. Would it be possible to start, if you can't design the entirety of 39 Finch East, could you at least start designing the portions that are in my ward of Scarborough North? I've heard from my residents time and time again that they are ready for this to happen, particularly with the development that's set to take place on Woodside Square.
Through the mayor, councillor, we are keen to advance particular phases of projects that have both councillor and community support, because that's key. But it is too early for Finch to see implementation this year, but we're very supportive of seeing phased implementation to achieve some sections faster than others.
So is it fair to say that Torontonians should expect to see some movement on this project by the end of the year? Whatever that might look like.
For Finch, we may be in a position to launch some of that first stage of consultation on by the end of the year, but we're looking forward to working with your office and your adjacent councillors on what that looks like. But we'll certainly be talking with you about it within this year to advance that project further.
And what about Steeles?
Steeles, we've been working on the design work at a preliminary level with York Region and Markham and Vaughan and Metrolinx, because Metrolinx has some aspirations in terms of BRT for one segment. So that was more work to help inform future planning and construction phases. We don't have Steeles as initiating further work west of Yonge in this near-term phase.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to staff, thank you for the good work here and for the presentation. Obviously, our transit riders are very eager to see this go forward, and I hope my colleagues as well will endorse this today. My question was more so pertaining to timelines, and you sort of touched on that a little bit. Could you maybe dig in deeper for us? How much do we anticipate of the plan before us could be implemented within this year? And what are we anticipating in terms of timelines for additional roadways for RapidTO?
Through the mayor, the project that is most likely to see a proposed implementation this year would be Jane Street, subject to how that design consultation phase goes and the endorsement of council. The other projects that are at a feasibility stage, we need some time to do the work about what options are possible and what the impacts are of those options, so that we can bring forward a design and engage the public and then bring forward a recommendation. So that's sort of study work that we need to do as staff that we'd like council endorsement to proceed with, so that we can move forward with the delivery of more of these projects in 2025 and beyond. We want to manage expectations. We want to move quickly, but we have been directed by council to go back to this broad level consultation a few times. We're hoping that we can have endorsement to get it on that plan, so that the project specific work is the area of focus.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Councillor Bravo.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to pick up on the question of timelines. Just to, it's really gratifying to hear explained that as I understand it, and perhaps you'll confirm, that what you've got before you, what you've put before us is what council had directed, but these are outside timelines. They're not intended to be prescriptive. And can you confirm that the intent here is to move as fast as possible within the direction you've been given?
That's correct, Councillor. Anytime we see a near-term opportunity to deliver transit improvements faster, even if we're underway with a study, we would seek to have those improvements delivered as fast as possible.
And certainly I'm hearing, and in the accumulation of reports that have come, that these are solutions that are staff recommended. There's, in many ways, any delays does have to do largely with political will, which we are now shifting in this meeting. Is that correct? I mean, you might not want to answer it that way, but you can answer it in your nice way.
Thank you for that question.
Councillor, we haven't had the endorsement of the plan from council that has been enabled us to proceed with the project level work. If council will is to get endorsement of that plan, it'll make each of those projects easier.
So put the rapid and RapidTO is really directed at us. My next question has to do with phasing. So I think it's important to hear that the deputants who have expertise and experience are asking for us to consider that there are segments that can be made a priority, or we can take a phased approach, we can be opportunistic. If that is correct, I would like to ask, for example, on Dufferin, where we have segments where we're adding thousands and thousands more units of housing, Dufferin being the slowest bus route in Toronto, and the spinal cord of certainly my ward, but it's not really about an individual ward, is it? It's about looking at the data, looking at the evidence, and actually following the numbers, and where the design can be simpler so that we can move faster. Is that correct?
You make a good point in terms of it's not about a particular ward. We are looking at corridors for various lengths, but that doesn't mean for Dufferin, for example, that we would need to have a staff-recommended, data-driven, approved solution by council all the way from Dufferin Gate to Wilson Station in order to move forward. We could certainly identify segments and phase implementation so that we can see benefits for riders. Those benefits will then, depending on where the bus routing is, be commensurate to the segments that are identified, though.
Thank you. And my last question is about the type of consultation. We've heard very thoughtful comments about who we're consulting, and I just want to ask whether there's a willingness to speak directly to transit riders. I'd love to see consultations that happen, accessible in some way in vehicles, at stops, because I think that the deep knowledge of where, the deep knowledge of the line really is with the transit riders. Is there going to be a real focus on transit riders in terms of consulting?
We have a really multifaceted approach to consultation that aims to reach community, but transit riders is a big part of that, and I'll pass it to TTC, who's a partner on this report, who may want to comment further.
Thank you. Through the chair, yes. For example, on Jane, we walked the corridors, we stopped at all the stops, we had posters and engagements, and then we have an extensive community partner list that we consult with. And then through our annual service plans, we ask about the stop consolidation and all of that. So we have done extensive consultation, and we will continue to do that for every corridor with our riders.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Councillor Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. It's really just following along the line of questioning from Councillor Bravo. Because I asked a question offline, what do we do in the case of Finch East, where it really is kind of a pinch between Yonge and Bayview, and the design is not clear to the community how it would work, and then suddenly the road widens. Now it happens to be that where the road widens is also a boundary between wards. But can we just be crystal clear that where you might make a decision to start a section to get going on a RapidTO line and start where you can start, it will be based on road design and your recommendations, not on political will in a ward?
The road design is the most important factor in terms of identifying where we can achieve surface transit improvements and where the most relevant segments are to deliver those. But we also work through a process directed by council, so we recognize that some of what we recommend may be adjusted by councillors, and so we are looking at what the risks and opportunities are in that respect, and open to considering phasing plans, ideally based mostly on the road design and the improvements that could be achieved through those changes.
But wherever possible, we're not now going to do phasing everywhere. We would end up, it would kind of look like the RapidTO would end up looking like the Toronto Bike Network of 2014 if we were to do too much phasing. So phasing is only where those design factors really dictate doing it that way in order to hurry. Is that sort of the guiding principle?
So through the Deputy Mayor, I think there's a couple of things. One is the opportunity to bundle projects with existing road work where we have real opportunities to move faster. Phasing, I think, makes some sense when it's in long stretches and we can have a design that also works for transit. And then I just want to clarify that RapidTO creates a toolbox of implementation options. And Chair Myers, TTC Chair Myers talked about red lanes. That's one of the options. It's certainly something where we have the opportunity to do that, we will. But there are other options and opportunities for improving transit service along these corridors that may, through consultation and engagement with local councillors, we may find that it doesn't look the same in all components along the corridor. So we do have a lot of options. The goal is to try to improve transit speed and reliability and also make sure that these projects are well received by communities ultimately so that people embrace them.
Okay, and one last question, Madam Chair. I remain concerned, and I keep asking for somebody to make me comfortable with this, because I know as soon as you create a priority lane, a RapidTO style lane, and if we created that busway, people think that as soon as you do that, you're also going to increase headway everywhere. Everything's going to be 2-minute headway. That's sort of, that's psychologically, that's what people start to expect. Are we 100% sure that if we proceed with this network and everything else proposed, we have enough vehicles?
Through the mayor, there would be an investment required in vehicles. Actually, sorry, let me take that back. The RapidTO program.
I don't want you to take that back.
I will take it back. The
I'm
RapidTO program will result in an operating savings from a time perspective, anywhere up to 5%. That inherently will reduce the requirement for vehicles. Now, if there is a knock-on effect of increased ridership, that's where additional vehicles would be required.
Oh, it's the ridership that would trigger it. You're prepared for the headway.
Yeah.
Okay. That's excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Our next questioner is Councillor Ainsley.
Thank you. Through your mayor to staff, I guess transportation staff first. As the first RapidTO red lanes in the city that went through my ward, I'm interested in lessons that were learned from the first one. And the first one I wanted to ask about was turn signage. When vehicles turn right into the bus lanes, there's like a hash mark or checkered red lane for people that are supposed to merge into, but there's no signage that delineates that. So nobody really understands what that's for. And it's not consistent at every intersection. So I'm trying to understand how that gets dealt with in the future.
Thanks for the question, Councillor. One of the first lessons I'll just mention is that because the Eglinton East RapidTO lanes were delivered during the pandemic time, we didn't have any consultation at all as part of that project. And one of the key lessons we had from that is even though the impacts were fairly minor, people wanted consultation. They wanted to understand why, they wanted to understand what the markings meant, and people wanted to be part of that. So that's one key. You make a good point about this is a new type of infrastructure for many residents in the city. There are signs that indicate the start of the bus lane, and the design standards do follow our Ontario traffic manual for where there is prioritization of lanes, but we are open to to hearing from people who feel it more guidance is needed. It's challenging to get the right balance of the right amount of signage and will people, and the signage that conforms with our design manuals that exist in this province.
Okay, and then are those lessons going to be used, like, are you going to be improving the signage on the Kingston Road Morningside?
We are looking at a couple of locations for some intersection signage and lane marking improvements along Eglinton East project, and we'll certainly take lessons learned from that project, both in the delivery and the consultation and the planning for some of the other RapidTO projects as well. These are fairly new to our team, and we look forward to learning lessons and building great infrastructure.
Okay, and the next question I had also around intersections, and I know, as you said, the lane was put in with minimal public consultation, but I've had a number of intersections where the red lanes have caused traffic jams or sightline issues, and they weren't dealt with as the lane was being put in, and now I'm being forced to go back to staff and ask for traffic studies. How is that being dealt with in the new laneways?
Like many of the street transformation projects that we do, we are actively monitoring. We're open to hearing feedback and addressing that feedback as we find it. I'm not sure about the particular concern you're mentioning, so I'm happy to speak with you offline about that. I know Councillor McKelvey has identified some concerns, and we've sought to address those as well.
Okay, I think it's just very important, to move people from point A to point B using public transit, but at the same time, moving motor vehicle traffic at the same time, so it's not impeding the use of the bus lanes, is important, I would think. Agree or disagree?
Correct. We're looking to keep all traffic moving, and one point is that the RapidTO Surface Transit Network Plan is one part of that, but we also have a deployment of smart signals and traffic agents and many other mechanisms that will help all traffic move, including help transit move around our city streets.
Okay, and then I wanted to ask about street furniture, because a number of bus stops were moved. I was told this RapidTO line was supposed to, replicate the Eglinton East LRT whenever we get funding from the province for it, but a number of bus stops were moved or eliminated, but the street furniture stayed where it was. So it was kind of weird to have a bus stop moved across the street and shelters and furniture stayed on the other side of the street. How is that communication issue or timeline issue being dealt with?
Thanks, Councillor, and through the mayor. So there certainly were some issues that needed to be addressed in terms of moving stops around. We are working very closely with the street furniture team in transportation and also with the consultant who does that work to catch that up. And I don't know if TTC has anything they want to say about stop consolidation. I think that was less your question and more about just being timely in addressing intersection challenges and moving the street furniture to catch up with the stop consolidation. So we do need to do a better job of that.
Okay, and then my last question, Mayor Chow, was TTC staff and trying to understand in the same vein that bus stops were moved around, but I also had bus stops eliminated with no community consultation. I was sent a letter explaining, X, Y, and Z bus stops were being eliminated. And I know that happened with Councillor McKelvey and also former Councillor Crawford. I'm trying to understand in the new version of RapidTO, lessons learned, how we're dealing with bus stops being eliminated.
Through the mayor, I'll start off with a high-level comment that yes, there were lessons learned on the Eglinton East RapidTO file with stop consolidations. I think we made some adjustments after the fact. That learning has been applied to the Jane Street corridor, and we're taking a context-specific approach based on the corridor and community feedback. Stephanie Simard can provide further details on the specifics around Jane as an example.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Chow.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had some similar questions around lessons learned. I just want to go back to the King Street pilot because I'm a little confused. It said there was no consultation, but I thought there was consultation and then a pilot and then it was implemented. So it wasn't just an overnight thing.
Through the mayor, thanks for the question, Deputy Mayor. Yes, that's true. I think sometimes we forget because King Street, from the time the final report was implemented or adopted by council till implementation was within a year, but there was a lot of consultation that was done through the TO Core program for a couple of years prior to that. And then there was the pilot, of course, and we took sort of active feedback from the community while that pilot was underway and made modifications all the way along until it became a permanent transit way. But even before the design, there was at least a year of community consultations that happened as part of TO Core.
And I remember that because the first pilot was, I think, December 2018. I think it was my first vote at council ever. And I was like, what is going on? Okay, so I think along the same lens of the questions from Councillor Ainsley, it sounds like you have looked at the lessons learned from Eglinton East corridor, so that's great. But with that, I think one of the lessons learned was because there was no consultation, people thought it was a pilot. And I'm still responding to people that this isn't a pilot and they want to know, is it coming back to council? Will they have another vote on it? Like, so how are we addressing that through these next tranches?
Through the mayor, perhaps I'd say that the RapidTO Surface Transit Network Plan gives us that sort of, again, plan level endorsement from council that these are projects that council has the endorsement, has given us the endorsement to proceed on. Each project, each roadway specific corridor would come for approval by council before implementation. And we're not proposing these be structured as pilots, so we would communicate that through our public engagement, that there is an opportunity to address, monitor and adjust challenges as they come up with community, but that a pilot would imply that there's then a second vote to say, should it stay? And that's not how these are proposed to be.
Okay, so great. So consultation will help to clarify that for community, which I think will be helpful in the long run. Okay, alternately, just in terms of lessons learned, like we did find that there were some areas where we had more infiltration than we'd like into the community, and some of the changes needed to be made for like turn prohibitions and stuff like that. So is that also why it's kind of important to be able to take your time to do the design and do it right?
Absolutely. Again, we've done this analysis to find out which corridors have the most ridership and have the most opportunity for improvement in travel time. And that's what sort of developed that long list that we did the consultation on to come up with the list. There are 20 corridors that we're seeking endorsement to study and ultimately deliver over the next 10 years in this report. But now we need to do that work on particular corridors, feasibility studies, identify what design solutions, come up with a recommended design, potentially some design options, consult with community, and then contract and deliver. And so that's why it does take a bit of time, because this is not just red bus lanes on every street. It could be Q-jump lanes. It could be transit priority signals. It could be red bus lanes. It could be a mix of those things depending on which section of the corridor would benefit from those improvements. So we do need to do the work to make sure we get it right and provide transit improvements that will really last.
Okay, and certainly I know we've had issues with the timing of the lights along Eglinton. You've been great at working through that, so thank you. And then, so that answers my next question about what was actually before us today. It's not all red bus lanes necessarily, it's that of the work. And then I guess my last question is for the TTC, like, are we prepared with the vehicles that would be needed for this?
Yeah, through the mayor, as I mentioned earlier, the investment in RapidTO will result in travel time savings, which reduces running time and therefore vehicle requirements. The choice to invest those vehicles back in to accommodate increases in demand, which we expect because there is now a greater incentive to use transit, would be up to the TTC board and governed by our service standards.
And just a final note, because I will note that when I drive by along the Eglinton East LRT, like there are significant potholes in the red bus lanes in particular. So I don't know if we've done an analysis if they're degrade the pavement faster or needs to be improved, but I just want to flag, you may want to have a look at that, because I imagine if you're on the bus, they're not necessarily fun to go over. So we should look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We'll take that back.
Famous potholes. Councillor Perks.
Thank you. I'm not sure can answer this. There is a lot of foundational policy that City Council has developed that sits underneath this plan. Our climate plan, the official plan transportation policies. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And both of those policies were broadly consulted on. I'm talking many, many meetings over years, great detail. In fact, if I recall, the transportation portions of the official plan explicitly signaled we were going to do this and were updated 3 or 4 years ago.
That sounds correct, yes.
So it would seem to me that when we talk about the need for public consultation, the need for public consultation on specific implementation isn't really an if question, it's more of a how question.
Get to, Councillor. We had council endorsement, council direction to specifically go back multiple times and consult on this as a plan. So that's why we're here with you with that today.
That's very helpful, thank you.
Okay, I see no other question to staff. And just prior speaking, I just want to thank the deputants because I didn't have the opportunity to do so. I was very encouraged, the thoughtfulness and the passionate and the well-researched speakers that came this morning. So just want to say thank you for doing so. Councillor Matlow.
Thank you, Mayor Chow. So I have a motion to include the section of Steeles Avenue between Pioneer Village Station and Bathurst Street, which was part of the original plan from 2020. And I'll speak to that particularly in a moment. Overall, we heard from deputants today, but along with those thoughtful comments that we heard from residents today, we've been hearing from residents for many years that they want us to put Rapid back in RapidTO. And what I'm hearing, and I know what many of you are hearing too, is that the debates over what vehicle to use are actually far less important than choosing the best possible way within the limited funds that we have to get as many people moving as possible, as quickly as possible. Toronto has one of the slowest commute times in North America, and we need to do better to make sure that we use the means that we have to help people get around the city. While it costs billions and billions of dollars with so many other ways to move people around, surface routes are something that we can use now. And I'm not suggesting that we take a page out of the book from the Ontario government and set up a shop at Benjamin Moore or the paint section of Home Depot. But we do have very, very professional, sorry, I had to go there, professional and competent staff who want to move forward now using paint, using the means that we have, and using the real estate that we have on our roads. Steeles Avenue in particular between Pioneer and Bathurst, Pioneer Village and Bathurst was part of the promised implementation back in 2020. And while I recognize that Metrolinx is reviewing that section, I think what we've all learned, and Eglinton is a good example, is that we can't wait on Metrolinx to get moving on plans that we believe are important. And frankly, what we're doing right now is not saying, go do it today. We're saying, go study and consult and make sure that the designs are right. This section of Steeles in particular has 30,000 riders a day. It's the third slowest route in the entire city, and it needs our attention now. It abuts York University, it has BIAs, it has several NIAs, neighborhood improvement areas, and it deserves our attention. Councillor Perruzza and Councillor Pasternak represent this section of Steeles. And while they are comfortable with this moving forward today, there were many comments or questions rather related to the importance of the consultation with regard to a successful design and ensuring that sightline impediments are avoided, that it's done successfully. And I have absolute confidence in our colleagues that as local councillors, they're going to be watching this very closely to make sure that the oversight, accountability, and the voices of those communities are heard during this process. I'll conclude by saying that I'm so grateful that we have an opportunity now to move forward with something that is cost-effective, that is doable, and that will change the lives and support the lives of so many Toronto residents. So I hope that you'll support this motion to kind of make this this plan full as it was promised in 2020, and I look forward to moving forward very rapidly on implementing RapidTO.
Thank you. Councillor Bravo?
Thank you, Chair. There are many people in the city who ask, where is RapidTO? Because 4 years is a long time to wait. It's an entire high school education. It's an entire college course of study, and it's for many people the lost opportunity of not being able to work after school, support themselves, get to work on time. Many of us have seen situations. I'm a daily transit rider, where people are actually breaking down in tears because they know that if they are late again, they might lose their job with no fault of their own. This city is crushed under the weight of congestion, and there's such a massive social and economic cost to that. But it accrues most to the people who are making our city work, who take care of our kids, who take care of seniors, who are in service, and it's truly, truly devastating. There's nothing that's more important than a bus in terms of access. A bus is actually an incredibly powerful integration, inclusion tool. It's study after study all over the world has shown us that if you want to make people feel like they belong, if you want to actually meet people where they are, if you want them to succeed economically, socially, then you need to make sure that they can get on a bus. So this is a very, very powerful intervention, and it's thrilling to see that we're going to be moving ahead. I think it's important to consult to the people that use the line around how the implementation details. They do matter because how we experience things has to do with we're the users of it. So that is important. And I'm really delighted to hear that there's a willingness and an impetus from staff to be opportunistic, to move ahead where it's possible, to look at where we can actually make strides quickly and meet the demand that's out there. I was sad, but I knew it because I ride the Dufferin bus, the Suffern, as you all know, that it's 10.6 kilometers per hour, the slowest bus route in Toronto. But it's also the spinal cord of so much in this city. And it's definitely cuts across my ward. But as we heard from the deputants, many people are connecting to this line. It's going to require a lot of changes. It's not the widest street in Toronto, but we just have to get on it. We have thousands and thousands of new units of housing, and just between DuPont and just south of Bloor. And the pressure that creates, at present, we have trouble with sidewalks holding people waiting for that bus. At present, all the way up at Rogers and St. Clair, and the imagining how many more residents are going to be included here is actually dangerous and scary. I think we heard so eloquently from all the deputants what it means to them in their lives. Let's not get fooled that 5 minutes here isn't actually a life-changing time saving that could accrue to 20, 25 minutes. It can change your life. So this is a really great step. I am going to support Councillor Matlow's inclusion of that important line. When we draw lines on a map, we're actually sending a signal to people that we're going to take action. And as Councillor Perks said, we have a mountain of policy underneath this that's holding this up. This isn't about whether we proceed, but it's actually how fast and how effectively. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Perks?
Thank you. Probably the worst thing a government can do is to say one thing and do another. And quite frankly, that's what the government of the City of Toronto has been doing on transit for the last decade and a half. We've been saying, we have to get more people on transit for climate reasons, not doing it. We've been saying that we need to improve transit service, not doing it. We have been told by the TTC that we have tens of billions of dollars in purchasing to do for equipment, state of good repair, vehicles, and rolling stock, not doing it. None of these conversations are new. Frankly, what we call RapidTO now used to be called Transit City Bus in 2008. You know, the tools have been there. None of this is a mystery. City of Toronto transportation staff and TTC planning staff have known how to do this for decades. For decades. We simply haven't wanted to spend the money. Easy as that. We didn't want to spend the money. We didn't want to buy the buses, and we didn't want to provide the TTC with the operating subsidy. It's interesting. Those transit projects that did make it through in the last decade and a half made it through specifically because it would increase vehicle speed, which meant you could cut the number of vehicles on the road and save money. That's the only time the TTC was told to go ahead and make priority transit investments in the City of Toronto. It was not done to increase service. It was not done to shorten travel times. It was done to reduce operating costs and vehicle purchase costs. Saying one thing and doing another. We heard today from, frankly, the future of the City of Toronto, if I can categorize you guys that way, that they are being blocked from achieving the lives that they could achieve and contributing to the City of Toronto in the ways they could contribute because of that decade and a half of saying one thing and doing another. Saying we believe in you as the future of Toronto, but actually trying to cut costs. Saying we want to do something about climate change, but actually trying to keep taxes low. Saying that we wanted people to have the opportunity to get anywhere they want to go in the city without buying a car, but actually constraining people's futures. It's time to stop. It's time to get the city back on track, and that means being serious, not just about saying, hey, let's do RapidTO, but being serious about buying enough vehicles, being serious about giving the TTC enough operating subsidy that they can do it, being serious about allocating our road space to those modes of travel that are going to be the ones we need to rely on in a changing climate. And that means, frankly, that although we've had a lot of courage in the last couple of weeks talking about what we can do on this year's budget, it means we have to have still more courage to talk about new revenue tools and a new fiscal framework, because quite frankly, there is no transit system in North America or Europe that gets less support from other orders of government than the TTC. So, you know, let's, for a change, say what we're going to do and do it. And that means fighting for the future for the people we just heard from today.
Thank you. Councillor Carroll, actually, Councillor Myers is not in this committee. Why don't we allow him to speak first?
Thank you, Mayor Chow. First, I would just like to thank the deputants that came out here in support of RapidTO. As someone who's used the Line 3 interim replacement and now the Line 3 shuttle replacement, I can attest firsthand as just what a difference these priority lanes make in terms of moving people efficiently and making sure that people get to where they're going on time. One of the really exciting things about this budget is that we are making record investments in improving transit. I think the subsidy for the TTC is now up to $1.2 billion. And by September 2024, we hope to get to about 97% pre-COVID levels. But, you know, as explained by the deputants, people are only going to really feel that. And this investment is only going to really make sense if the buses are moving in an efficient manner. And to do that, we really have to prioritize the buses. We've heard from staff that they are ready, willing, and able to get this project moving forward. I know from my own conversations with the TTC that they are also excited about improving the headways and providing a better customer experience. So I would just like to voice my support for this proposal and really getting these transit lanes moving. And I'm very, very excited and looking forward to working with Councillor Shelley Carroll to get 39 Finch East going before the end of this term. So thank you very much.
Councillor Carroll?
Yes. Yeah, we definitely need it out there. I was especially grateful that one of those deputations came from a Seneca student, because it's, these are the unsung heroes. The suburban campuses attract so much transit ridership and, make it possible to generate the number of vehicles it takes to go back and forth. The residents benefit from the fact that they create that ridership demand, and Seneca on Finch Avenue East is definitely doing that as it grows by leaps and bounds. I only have one thing to ask, and I mention it now early on in the process because I want to see it in future assumptions and future budgets, et cetera. All of these lines need to have a budget for education. We're coming up with really innovative design here. And, we need to learn a lesson from some of the struggles that we have in some of the places where we do implement new bike lanes. The car drivers do not know how to work with some of the intersections. I have every single morning that I come to City Hall, I have the frustration of getting to the corner of Bay and Richmond and watching vehicle after all these years still not know what to do with that green space. And so they straddle it and block the cyclists out in every way. If we're going to use some of the innovative, lay-by and different routes that I've seen in some of the designs for RapidTO and some of the places will need it, we need to get the word to the drivers how they will now navigate those roads. And it's not that expensive. We're not allowed to have it on our phone, but every young driver who is now driving around dealing with the new is staring at TikTok. It doesn't take a lot to complete a RapidTO lane, then make a TikTok video about how you drive when you get to the intersection and just slap it up there. Things like that have to be factored in to each new line because putting a picture on a subway ramp on an ad is not going to get to a car driver, so he's not going to learn anything. So while those ad surfaces are available to us, they don't speak to the people we need to understand their new road design. And so for the sake of the bus operators who so often have to deal with the vista of cars messing up the intersection as they approach them, each of these new lanes has to come with some component built into the design and implementation, and then we will educate the other users of the road how to navigate the design on this particular route. I like the idea that where they need to be, they'll be slightly different. This works for this intersection, that works for that intersection. We just have to have communications budgets. It's very simple to do now because we have so many platforms we can do it on, but let's not have regrets and let's not have to figure out the education after the problem exists and an accident has happened. Let's build it in at the very beginning. That's my only ask. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor McAfee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to start by thanking staff for all their hard work on these projects here, but also on RapidTO on the Eglinton East LRT. And I'll also take a moment to thank my colleague, Councillor Ainsley. I remember us standing out there on Eglinton when we were announcing that this project was going to happen. And it was very much for riders and recognizing the need of 18,000 people that take that corridor every day. And in particular, a lot of students that go to the University of Toronto Scarborough campus. And city staff actually accelerated it upon request. We had a motion at council and we got it done. And they're still continuing to refine it. And when we send feedback, they are always incorporating that in and very open to conversations around that. The only thing I think that we could have done better is it wasn't clear to residents that it was not a pilot. And I think that's because we had the King Street pilot, we have bike lane pilots, we have all these different pilots. And so I think that all of us should be very careful going forward that that impression is not given on community, because it was very hard to walk that back and continue those conversations. You know, I still have people that come up to me and tell me how much they hate the red bus lanes, to which I say, you're a driver? And they say yes. And I say, well, it's for the 18,000 people that take the bus who happen to love it. And they say, I know. And they acknowledge that. And they acknowledge that every bus is 52 cars that could be off the road. And so that's helpful too. And I will say there was one very, very brave resident that came up to me at Harvest Fest and said, you probably don't hear this a lot, but I like the red bus lanes, and I want to say thank you as somebody that takes those bus lanes. And I do know his name, and so the joke was that I was gonna start using that as my talking point, that we'll call him Bob. Well, Bob loves them, so we won't out Bob, but like there are Bobs out there. And again, just, you know, big thanks to staff that put this through. Big thanks to Councillor Ainsley. We've worked really well on this together to share information with community about why this is important, why this needs to happen. And I'm looking forward to the next set of installations and providing support in any way that we can as councillors that have had this change in their communities. I'm always happy to share what we learned and be helpful in any way that I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speaker on this? Oh, good. Councillor Sachs and then Deputy Mayor Cole.
Thank you for allowing me to speak out of order. I do want to thank the deputants and the staff and the powerful speakers we've heard from today. I just want to add my voice. When I was the Environmental Commissioner of Ontario, one of the things I studied and reported to the Ontario Legislature is what are the cheapest, fastest, most transformative actions that municipal governments can take on climate. And you all know, we've had the report from our Environment Climate Group, that the City of Toronto is not on track for any of our climate targets. We are not on track for net zero by 2040. We are on track to be worse than business as planned. And that is going to be devastating for the future of everybody younger than me, which is most of you. So we need to do something about it, and we're in a financial crunch. So paying attention to what's cheap, fast, transformative, proven around the world makes sense for us. And bus lanes and bike lanes are two of the fastest, cheapest, most transformative climate actions that any city can take. We know what to do. As Councillor Perks said, we've got a mountain of research, a mountain of work. We just haven't done it. Now we must do it, and we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cole, Deputy Mayor Cole.
Yeah, I just, first of all, want to thank all the deputants that took time to be here. I just wish that some of the deputants that could have been here can't be here, because they are the working people of the city that ride the Dufferin bus, for instance, every day. They can't get off work. They can't go to TTC meetings. They can't come to these meetings. And it'd be great to hear from them one day, but they're never heard from. They're the ones that have to be jam-packed like sardines on the bus every day, back and forth through all the potholes and the rickety buses. And yeah, anyways, sorry that they can't be here. But anyways, I just have a motion. Just requesting that this study that's going to be done, take into account all the additional hyper development that's taking place on Dufferin over the next number of years. There's about 12,000 units going in, about 30 condo towers going in. So you think you got a problem on Dufferin today, wait till those 30 condo towers go in. Do I have the map, please? Is that possible to put up? I had the map of Dufferin development. Okay, while we're waiting for that, I just want to say that I said if I had my way, I would build a subway on Dufferin. Never mind wasting my money on the Eglinton West boondoggle, $5-6 billion, extending Yonge Street up to Lake Simcoe, all these billions being wasted. So we should invest in transit in the city. And I don't want to mention the Ontario line, another billion-dollar boondoggle that we'll see what the heck that does. So, but you know, a simple investment in putting a relief line on Dufferin, you know, from Downsview development down to the exhibition place makes a lot of sense, but ain't gonna happen, I know, because everybody's enamored with these boondoggles everywhere. So I'm just going to say that one of the realities here is that it's quite a pipe dream to think you're going to fix the transit bus times on Dufferin with this magical plan. Ain't gonna happen. Dufferin is an inner city street, jam-packed today, and what more jamming is gonna happen as, again, we approve all these developments? Then you have the fact that Dufferin has these major malls on it, the Dufferin Mall, and then you've got the Yorkdale Mall. And on the Yorkdale, you have another 19 condo towers going on that land. So you can see what, if you want to see traffic jams, just go up Dufferin, north of Eglinton, any day of the week. Don't go on Saturdays. But anyway, so there's more intensification coming. And you know, it's not just from the people who are going to live in these towers, it's all the Uber drivers, it's all the FedEx drivers, it's all the Canada Post drivers that are going up and down their trucks, jamming Dufferin. On top of that, what they do, they're all going to Costco. And how are you going to stop people from going to, they don't go to Costco on the bus or on a bike. They drive to Costco. Then they go to the 401. They don't go on a bike to the 401. They drive up Dufferin. Then you've got all the construction mayhem. You've got so many construction cement trucks, dump trucks on Dufferin 24/7. I don't know how your busways are going to ever manage to get up and down Dufferin with these mega trucks all up and down the street. So I just want to put a bit of my realism from Dufferin, because I've been talking about Dufferin for too long. Glad to see people finally recognize that there's maybe a need to do something, and I hope we've invested another, it's the biggest increase in all our budget items this year has been for the climate. It's been $127 extra million to the TTC. 127 million, and I hope the TTC uses that money. 270, sorry, 270, oh, they, 272, sorry, okay. Anyways, my map was enough, eh?
It was.
Oh.
Yes.
We loved your map.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Anyways, good luck.
Thank you. Any other speaker? No? Okay. We have two motions. One is from Councillor Matlow and one from Deputy Mayor Cole. On Councillor Matlow's motion, you've seen it, you've heard the argument, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carry. Thank you. And on Deputy Mayor Cole's motion, on the screen, almost there. Okay, here we are. All those in favor? Opposed? Carry on the main item, staff recommendation. Thank you. Done. Whoa, all right. In, in principle, yes. Put the rapid back to RapidTO, as they say. Thank you. All right, we have a few more items. Let's see if we could finish them. We have the City of Toronto Environmental and Social Governance Annual Report. Is there a speaker? Mr. Hamish Wilson.
Thank you. And again, you've just done something. It's a really good thing. So this is cause for optimism. And there's been a lot of work and effort in putting this report and skill, but I'm sorry it's falling short. Though, you know, like it's rather obvious we're in a rather abnormal winter. I forgot to bring in some spring flowers that are in bloom. They've been up and then basically blooming. It's gardening weather. It is an emergency. And if we get into a deep freeze after, you know, like that's how the road infrastructure declines even further, is a snap, crackle, pop. So there's a real, you know, climate emergency, and we're underestimating things. And I was a little disappointed that I didn't see any reference to a report, the IE 6.6, which was about, you know, consumption-based emissions reporting. And I have printed out a quote: Toronto's community-wide consumption-based emissions were roughly 39 megatons of carbon dioxide equivalent. When compared to Toronto's sector-based emissions inventory, the emissions-related consumption were 2.5 times greater than sector-based emissions reported in 2019. So we're underestimating how bad things are. If I can, let's see, which was the button that was pressed. In a decade ago, Paris did a wonderful job of analyzing their emissions. The air transport was a huge factor. Oh, there, it's starting to come up. It's here. I should know how to operate this by now, but at the same time, I don't want to. Oh, it's up? Oh, there we are. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So yes, the air transport, including bringing things in, is huge. And I didn't see mention of this in the report. Food consumption, and it's another huge thing. The residential, like, I think we've been not analyzing and then reacting well to what our emissions profile is. And it's sort of like the Caronic denial about, you know, our finances. The late Bob Hunter had a wonderful column about 14 years ago with a rather blunt headline: "Lying Energy Pigs, That's Us." Yay, Bob. Hope his columns are still online somewhere or available. So it's a function of, you know, we really need to start including concrete in our emissions profile, start counting the concrete. That'd be really important. And counting Pearson. The TAF is now a GTH wide body, so let's do that, please. So yes, we need to regard every demolition as an oil spill, and to really react to the climate crisis, we have to start controlling the demolitions based on facts. The energy embodied in older buildings is often very substantial. So these figures here excerpted from a 1967 set of figures. We've known how to do this. And you know, that 1991 column I had talked about a demolition tax. We actually could control demolitions based on how much embodied energy there is. And maybe you should be thinking about all the concrete that we might be using as well. Too bad our EAs tend not to count concrete, etc. Another thing to do is to, well, you've just done an awful lot of good things, thank you, but at the same time, nudge, nudge, nudge. The equity of taxes and usages of money, much of what is touted for transit investment is not transit investment necessarily. So we need to make sure that our, well, you saw the one figure about the cars are subsidized. This is another thing from, I don't know, decades ago. But let's see, to quote from it, the subsidy from property taxpayer to the motorist causes two problems. First, the motorist doesn't feel the cost of driving. The second problem is an equity case. Many urban dwellers don't own cars, yet they subsidize cars through their property taxes. So this one report from Minneapolis suggested a 40% decrease in property taxes if the car is paid their way. Now, I know it's an important issue and people won't want to be taxed, but in terms of actually having those market mechanisms to adjust what we're doing to save the climate, we need to move on all of these things, which is not popular. But the amount of serviced land that is actually involved in providing for cars, including their parked cars, this is a rather stunning and almost depressing little factoid recently in the Star. There are as many as 4.4 parking spaces for every car in the country. Wow. So let's start charging, like even a drainage services tax. I don't think that's in your budget yet. Waterloo has one. So we need to work on these sorts of things, please. And the bike stuff, I was very pleased to hear the support for doing bike lanes. And yes, we do have sometimes still have a bit of a not work rather than a network. There's a lot more that could be done, including maintenance. I'm very concerned about trying to get the smooth, safe access out to Parkdale and NIA area. Try to move the tracks, give us a dedicated westbound bike lane. Sorry we didn't get the Queen Street subway from, let's see, that's 1957 or something.
Can you wrap
out
up?
to
Time is
out to
almost there.
Islington. It's a start, what we're doing here. What you've just done is great, but we need to do far, far more and be honest about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the speaker? All right, any questions on this item? Deputy Mayor Morley?
Thank you. Through you to staff, can you speak to the City of Toronto's approach and efforts to divest from fossil fuels? What work is being taken to reduce or divest from fossil fuel investments?
Look at, they're all pointing at each
I
other.
know.
You do it.
Thanks, James.
So I'll defer to my financial folks in terms of any investments, but in terms of the kind of the first step is really the work we've just done on the carbon baseline note, which is identifying our fossil fuel reliant activities, and those are our investments. So where we are purchasing capital investments that result in a reliance on fossil fuels. And those may be transitionary type reliance. So for example, the purchase of hybrid buses, we were still relying on fossil fuels, but also looking to the longer term in terms of how we transition to zero emission types of activities. So we've really taken the first step this year in terms of quantifying that. That's in our carbon budget baseline note. We'll be improving that over time in terms of now through the carbon budget process, what are the actions we actually need to do to start to reduce those numbers to get away from longer term reliance on fossil fuels and investments.
Great, thank you. That's helpful, thank you. In case anybody else wants to add in, no? Perfect, thank you, that's helpful. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, any speakers on this item? Deputy Mayor McKelvey?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank city staff for putting this together and make sure we all realize that we were Canada's first municipality to do an ESG report. And so I don't think we compliment ourselves enough on our good work. So I just want to make sure that we do that. Also point out that city staff have done an amazing job through this budget process to implement a carbon budget. And that's something that we asked them to do when we moved the emergency declaration of around climate. So anyway, that's all. I just want to make sure you all know how great the City of Toronto is.
I just want to echo Deputy Mayor's comment. It's a very thorough examination in all these aspects of the work we do. Report in front of you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carry. Thank you. Our next item is the review of the Imagination Manufacturing Innovation and Technology Property Tax Incentive Program. Paul Scrivener from the Toronto Industry Network. Sorry to keep you waiting, sir. Hope you find the morning interesting. And then Sarah Farrell from the Pinewood Toronto studio.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Mayor Chow and members of the Executive Committee, it's good to see you. And I've enjoyed listening to the discussion about RapidTO. I understand because I ride the TTC. But I want to talk about something that's also important to manufacturing in Toronto. And I'm here today representing Toronto Industry Network. You have a letter that is attached to the item from Craig McCluskey, the president of TIN. He cannot be here today. He's in Georgia. They're building, Irving Tissue's building a new plant there. But what I want to say, and writing down on the subway, it came to me. It's about reimagining IMET. We want to say that we support very much the staff recommendations, and we hope that you'll send your recommendation to council in support as well. I should say, Toronto's a great place, there's no doubt, and I'm happy to be here, and so are our members. But we are in a lot of competition from around the world, North America. Our members are bombarded, literally, with enticements from US states. Come to Kentucky, come to New York, and they say, when you get here, you commit to build, we can give you this, and we will give you that. If you have 300 employees, we'll give you a tax holiday of so many years. We don't have the legislative bandwidth to do that, but we do have some simple programs. For instance, we are distinctive that we do not charge development charges for new industrial development. That stands out, and that's important. We have industrial water charge. Well, actually, a lot of municipalities do that. And we have IMET. And frankly, IMET hasn't had a big uptake by manufacturing, and for a number of reasons. But I can think of one success story, and that is Sanofi Pasteur, who used IMET. And that is a crown jewel in our manufacturing tiara. Here they are, they've spent millions and millions and millions, and they're hiring all sorts of highly skilled people to produce vaccines that we use every day. And it's important to keep manufacturing in this city. It's the jobs, it's the supply chain. Pandemic brought that home big time. Irving Tissue became popular household name as everybody loaded up on tissue. Red Pass Sugar, we all took baking, but there's a whole lot of other things that we do here. And we have to keep our manufacturing here. And so we think that IMET should be just gone over, and let's see what we could do to make it more innovative with a bigger uptake and so on. And for instance, there's a couple of things, and I'm not sure how, there's some technical issues with this, but IMET could be repurposed to include, for instance, increasing production in your facility and modernizing it, but increasing production. And Greg Lintern said, we have to intensify the manufacturing capability of our employment lands because they're finite. So what can we do with the same land and use more? Another thing, office space, a huge issue. Councillor Carroll's ward, downtown. A little light went on. Well, why not have IMIT there to help office space be converted to non-residential uses, like, for instance, urban farming, supply chain, grow our food here. And I think that's very important. That's a passion of mine. And those are just two ideas. But let's ask staff to come up with some creative things, and Tim's quite happy to help with that. So those are my comments. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Questions, Councillor Bravo? Or
Thank you very much for being here today. In your letter, you talk about the pressure on employment lands and the economic threat that results in. Can you comment on how opportunities maybe we're not taking advantage of opportunities that the U.S.'s Buy American policies provide with relation to, for example, you know, the making for tractors here. It counts, and there are some manufacturers, for example, in Scarborough that like to expand, add more shifts, but they can't. Can you comment on the pressure that we face and any opportunities that you see that we're missing?
So if a company gets a new customer and they want to increase their production, put an extension on their plant, a multinational, they get, and they fight like cats and dogs, the sister plants. You think it'd be lovey-dovey, it is not. And so if we get a mandate to produce something here that was being produced there, what we need is to, and this is outside of IMIT a bit, it's not just incentives, and the incentives aren't really going to make the day, but it's being able to say to somebody who has wants to increase production, we can approve the construction of your facility in such and such a time frame. And that's one of the reasons that Sanofi got their big manufacturing facility B200, and they beat out their sister plant in Connecticut, is we were able to offer a finite timeline. It took some doing. But that's very, very important, because certainty, certainty that you can construct something and have the production in place going out the door by a certain date is critical. And the other thing is that certainty in land use, and it's about all the non-industrial uses in employment lands. This is an ongoing concern, and now the conversations with the province about that. And thank you for council for your support of through the MCR process. I don't know if that's answered your question.
Yeah, and I think you know, the transformation from plastics to paper uses is something that, you know, I think about how every single tag, every bread, you know, the fastener on the bread, everything's going to have to be cardboard or like increasingly paper uses, and moving that around, importing it doesn't make a ton of sense if we were able to reanimate that industry, for example, but they need space.
They need space, and manufacturing isn't a stationary thing. It has to adapt. It has to produce what customers want. And if you're producing something that nobody wants, the writing is on the wall. So, but if we have the environment, we can adapt. And we want to be here in Toronto. And, you know, Toronto has a market of its own. It's close to markets. It's close to export market. And it has a labor force that's well-educated and so on and so on. So we want to be here.
That would certainly alleviate congestion. And just as you're building out your knowledge around light manufacturing uses for former office buildings, that's very interesting, and something I think that could really help ensure the local economy.
I just add that it wasn't that long ago there were a lot of factories in Toronto that were vertical manufacturing facilities. They weren't spread out, they went up, 4 stories, 6 stories, and so on. You will remember those.
A lot of them were in my ward.
Thank you so much. Councillor Morley, you have a question? Sorry, Deputy Mayor. And I'm going to suggest we finish the item, at least. There is only one other item in front of us after this one. I just want to know, which is the board keeping Toronto safe from hate is the Police Service Board. It's the motion is to receive for information anyway. Is there the?
Can I move that it's, I think there's a number of questions of staff and such on this item. Could we at least finish the deputations?
I was going to move to extend to complete the agenda, but if there's an
that's
appetite
bold.
for that,
So are you moving to?
the agenda.
Oh, okay. Are folks okay with that? Okay, I think people like that idea. All those in favor of the motion to finish the item and then break for lunch? Finish the agenda, pardon me, there's, this one plus one more. There is a couple of questions I see. Councillor Bravo, Dunn, and who wants to have questions on this item? Councillor Molly and, nope, not for you. That was your motion. Any other
So we
motions?
still have a deputant to hear from?
Oh, yes.
That's
pardon
what I
me.
was trying to
Sorry.
extend for. Can we hear from Pinewood?
Yes, we need to hear from Pinewood. Sarah Farrell.
Here we go.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to start off by saying that the municipal government and the film industry have worked together for many years, decades, to build up a sector that, in fact, Movie Maker magazine just named Toronto the best place to live and work as a filmmaker. And that has very much been due to the spectacular support from the city to create a thriving film industry that has contributed significantly to the economy over the last several years. As mentioned, I represent Pinewood Toronto Studios, and we are the largest purpose-built studio in Toronto. We're located in the Portlands. We recently finished a large and much-needed expansion on our lot. We added 5 new stages and several support spaces to our studio complex. And in fact, just 2 weeks ago, our own Mayor, Olivia Chow, and Councillor Paula Fletcher, who is also chair of the Film, Television, and Media Board, spoke at a press conference at our site announcing an unprecedented multi-year commitment by Amazon MGM to our city's film and television industry. They are taking 160,000 square feet of space to produce more content in Toronto, and this will in turn result in thousands of jobs and significant contributions to the local economy. Among other things, this commitment is a testament to our city's world-class workers, suppliers, and amenities. But it is also a testament to our municipal government and its clear and unwavering commitment to not only supporting our industry, but to working with us to ensure it grows and flourishes. The film and television industry contributed roughly 2.6 billion, sorry, miswrote that. It's only $1 billion, yeah. 2.6 billion to Toronto's economy last year and provided around 35,000 full-time jobs. And yet we as an industry are turning away scores of productions every year due to lack of studio space. There is minimal suitable land within Toronto's boundaries to accommodate the large footprint of a functional studio complex. Productions typically require multiple stages, workshops, offices, and other support spaces. And suitable land in our city, if available, is very expensive. This means the cost to build studios can be much greater in Toronto than other jurisdictions, a factor that significantly contributed to our decision to expand and to what we could feasibly build was the IMET grant. IMET symbolizes our city's commitment to the investments it has made as a partner to our industry, for which we are incredibly grateful. We are asking that this commitment to our sector be maintained. If implemented, the proposed removal of standalone office developments will reduce IMET eligibility by 84%. And film studios would remain eligible within the remaining 16%. We are asking the city not to further halve the remaining grant, but instead maintain the current 10-year reimbursement timeline, signaling to the local and international film and TV industry that it stands by the investments and commitments it has made to being a city where production can thrive and grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Carroll.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you could sort of like further outline the text of all of this post the entertainment industry strikes, the Writers Guild and the Actors Union, in terms of really getting people geared up and attracted back to Toronto. We need the news of attracting the actual studios themselves, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I will say that that following the strikes, there has been a very significant, obviously, uptick in production, but so much so that again, you know, the spaces that we have built are currently full, and so we're turning away productions, which are then in turn going to other jurisdictions simply because we do not have enough space, and that's across the studio complex sector.
Is there a danger in that if they find another studio, get used to that studio, get used to that city's location, services, et cetera?
Yeah, for sure. You know, there are other jurisdictions, of course, that are looking to build up their industry, and that takes clients and attracting clients. And it takes not just sort of pulling them away based on incentives, but also pulling them away based on availability.
Right.
And it's something that I think we could really ameliorate by increasing the capacity of the city.
Right. Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming today.
You're welcome.
Any other speaker on this item? If not, councillors, question to staff?
I just had a question of
Oh,
the.
pardon me. Okay.
Yeah, no, I just have a question. When you say film, I've got two of my children work in television. Does that include TV or just film?
Yes, film, television, also very strong emerging, or not even emerging, a very established video game industry, animation, other media, yeah.
No, because I think we got to include TV.
All
Okay.
the lines are blurred now.
And in fact, everything that's filming on our lot right now is TV, so.
Yeah, that's,
we're big
okay.
fans.
Anyways, just want to make sure. Okay.
Thank you. Speaker on this item, Councillor Carroll, no. Moving staff report on this item, Councillor
Staff question.
Fletcher.
Staff question.
Oh, question to staff.
Thank you. You're trying to speed it up, just like
Go
the
for
rapid bus trans. The deputant said, try to keep this at the full amount and not half it. What would the implication of that be if we were to make that decision?
Through the mayor to you, Councillor Fletcher, were we to keep it at the full amount, calibrated at 60% on a 10-year term, with the exclusion of office, you would certainly have a less expensive program. The recommendation from staff in reducing that term from 10 to 5 would reduce the value of the program probably to 1/8 to 1/10 of the existing program, where to date, council over the 15-year run of the program has committed $790 million to the program. So it would certainly be smaller in either of those versions, but smaller still in the staff recommended version of a shorter duration.
So perhaps by council, you could let me know exactly what that means, because you're removing 84% of those eligible. maintaining 16, and what the value of that would be over the next number of years.
Through the mayor to you, Councillor Fletcher, the 84 does represent the number of applications by value that represented office, but that was a function of that demand with that program. It does not necessarily follow that we would get 84 for any given category thereafter. But what we can say is the program certainly would be significantly smaller, and we can do a bit more modeling to bring forward to council.
Because you're excluding certain types. You're excluding office now, and remaining is film and other types of manufacturing.
Yep, through the mayor to you, Councillor Fletcher, we're excluding all office, but for small ancillary office.
Yes,
that
like a film
would
office.
accompany,
Yeah,
exactly,
no,
yeah,
that's-
in employment lands.
Yes,
yeah.
that's fine. So maybe we could just look at that and see if there's, what that amount might be.
Sure, we're happy to do that.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions to staff? Speaker? No, okay, I'm moving staff recommendation that's in front of you. Thank you, Councillor Carroll. All those in favor? Opposed, carry, thank you. One other item. Pardon?
Item 9?
Yes, yes.
St. George, and then...
Oh, St. George, I'm sorry. Councillor Ainsley, you have a question on that. We are at St. George one. Number 9 and number 10.
Number 9 first.
Number 9, we had number 9, I meant, yeah.
I have a
Yes,
question.
go ahead.
Yeah, and so, sorry, so this is on the George Street Revitalization project. Now we have one question, and I don't want to sound sarcastic or, you know, a lob ball question, but this project's been going on back since 2012. I can remember being on the Community Development and Recreation Committee when David Miller was mayor, and we took a tour of Seton House, and we're in 2024 now, without even taking into the timeline in the confidential document. Why is this taking so long?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Ainsley, it's Pat Matozo, Councillor. There were two significant delays in getting this project going. One was the city's response to COVID-19 in 20 and 21 as key stakeholders in shelters and in long-term care. We're heavily engaged in the emergency response to the response for COVID. The second delay was due to challenging market conditions in the same time frame. Infrastructure Ontario, that was a commercial procurement lead on behalf of the city, had put out a request for qualifications in late 2020. And due to the market saturation, we only received one qualified bid, and a lot of that was due to the saturation in the market, as there were economic stimulus in response to COVID-19, and a lot of contractors were doing work with respect to that. So that delayed the RFQ, which then had to go back out to market to ensure we had sufficient bidders to bid on the project. So those were two key significant delays.
But even aside from that, when I look, and I don't want to go into I'm not going to go into the details of the confidential document, but we're changing direction in the confidential document now, which is going to add even more time onto the project. And, you know, even in the report that we have before us, as I said, like, this was being discussed at Community Development and Recreation going back to 2012. Like, have we learned lessons from this that, you know, like we talk about declaring homelessness an emergency in Toronto, and we're spending it's almost shocking the amount of time that we're spending renovating a shelter.
So through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Ainsley, absolutely there are lessons learned. No one would have imagined, you know, COVID would have wreaked havoc on the marketplace. Lots of lessons learned. We do have a plan forward, as noted in the confidential attachment, and we'll move forward as fast as we can with respect to the delivery of the project.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carroll and then Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick question, and I think this is a public question. Is the original facility now fully decanted? Is it closed down?
Through you, through the chair, no, it's not closed down. We currently have, as of last night, 350 beds as an emergency shelter, as well as our winter response.
Here.
Sorry. We currently have 350 beds operating at that location, 120 of which are part of our winter response.
And so a very, very big part of this is not just market fluctuations as a result of COVID, but the very changing demands and our inability to decant, because we were busy meeting COVID shelter requirements and then busy meeting demand, and finally housing asylum seekers and refugee claimants in places we might otherwise be using to decant this facility. Am I painting the right picture?
Through the chair to Councillor, yes, you are.
Thank you.
Councillor Fletcher?
Thank you. Thank you. Just remind me the number of beds at Seton House.
Through the chair, can I get some clarification on the number of beds that are currently there right now are 350 beds?
Yeah, I heard that, but I'm looking for how many beds were there at Seton House?
At its height, there was 580 beds.
580 beds. So, and how many of those 350 are you using for the winter program right now? I missed that. 150, did you say, or 125?
122.
122. So there's still 228, I'll just call them stable beds that, for residents rather than winter programming.
Through the
that are
chair,
on
yes,
site.
Councillor, there is still that number of beds, and we continue to work to open one more shelter with respect to the GSR to be able to move
You know, it's
many of
really
those
hard
out.
to hear. Maybe it might be your microphone.
Sorry, Councillor. Hopefully that's better.
Yes, that's much better.
We continue to work to open an additional shelter and work with our Housing Secretariat partners to find alternative housing, long-term housing for residents. And again, we are one more shelter to open at 2299 Dundas.
And the 352 people that had moved, where did they move to? Are they in permanent housing? Are they in temporary locations until the day when this gets rebuilt?
So through the chair, Council, we've been working for several years. A number of the people who left, about 180 of those residents was through natural attrition, through finding additional housing, could be through family reconciliation. And again, we've opened 4 additional sites related to the GSR smaller sites in order to move people out. And so it's a combination of people who have moved out into housing and a combination of also moving beds to those smaller shelters.
So 180, you've found, folks have found permanent housing somewhere, not necessarily in the same location together. Am I right?
That is correct.
And then 4 additional sites for the remaining and in the city. So this is, and it's set to, if all goes well, you'll be opening that, can we say the year or not in the deal? Just want to be careful. Is that a public number? The completion date, once our new completion date.
Councillor, it's in the confidential attachment.
So I can't, that's
Yeah,
fine. That's
I could
okay.
give you that offline.
No, I can read it, I've read it.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
Just wondering how long that those 4 additional sites will be used, and how many people that is, plus the 228. So there's a fair number of people in order that are using space that could be used, and 228 beds that still need to be found prior to breaking ground there. I would call it that. I think I'm right on that. Do I have my numbers right?
That is correct, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor, if I could add, there's also the shelter infrastructure report going to council next week, so that's part of the strategy as well.
Thank you. Any other question to staff? Deputy Mayor Cole?
Yeah, I just want to ask a question. We've got 19 empty subway stations on the Eglinton boondoggle there that have
see where you're going.
washrooms, they're tiled. Can we use these 19 empty places for warming centers or for temporary shelter beds? I wonder if that's been looked at.
Through the chair to the councillor, no, they have not been looked at as a temporary.
Okay, I'm going to move a motion to that effect. I think we should at least look at that.
Where's the old bus station?
Yeah, and the bus station.
Thank you. All right, we're talking about St. George. It might be slightly, but anyway, cross that bridge when we get there. Any other questions to the staff? If not, the recommendations in front of you.
Okay, handwritten.
Confidential attachment 1, and there will be a public release of this confidential attachment once we adopt it by council, which is week or two. Okay, and there's attachment 2.
Just to speak.
Councilor Carroll, to
short.
speak, and yes, go for it.
It's very short. I just want to point out, often we have to go by official dates in writing these reports, but while it talks about council deciding to do this in 2013, this was actually originally a vision shared between the public sector and council well before that. The first time it was discussed, Councillor Chow was still among us. Councillor Chow, I just said. This was a burning passion for Councillor Ray. I think it's part of the reason he got fed up and retired quite young. We said it would happen and officially started trying to do this on 2013. But the frustrating part about this report is the good news is all in camera, because the progress that can be made is there. And I hope people read it, because we're getting down to the short strokes there to do things. But I think we can't let this pass without saying that in terms of making sure that these people are in good places, and George Street as it stands is not a great place. When it was full, it was certainly not a great place. We know now that's not the best way to shelter folks, and we want to right size and do something that is more supportive and accessible for all. But what's standing in the way of this is the current shelter capacity. And this is one of the very burning reasons why we must have the support of another order of government. Because I asked the question and had it confirmed. The vast number, which is almost 6,000 now, of asylum seekers and refugee claimants that are in the shelter system is why we can't fully decant this place right now into places where they would actually be much better sheltered than waiting around in a building we know we need to overhaul. And so it serves today as an absolute illustration of why we need the support of another order of government so that we can both progress with what is our main core shelter support and housing system and what we are currently doing on their behalf as a result of the current crisis in global mass migration.
Moving that motion, staff report, speaking to it, Councillor Bravo. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carry. Thank you. One last item. This is the Police Service Board response. It's here for information and it's to receive for information. But Miguel wants to say hello to us and say a few words. Are you still interested?
Yes, I do.
And is Derek Moran also here, or no? Yeah, he is. Oh, didn't see you behind the pillar, okay.
Can you hold my time, please?
Sure.
On my way here to Executive Committee, I was stopped by the Screaming Table corporate officers. I lodged many complaints to your predecessor about the way you guys treat regular deputies to come to City Hall. Can you hold my time, please?
Okay. What I
What
wanted
are
you
you say
trying to
is
talk
that
about?
I take offense when the city corporate officers, they touch my body with a magic wand. I feel violated.
Can we
I
deal
don't
with
want to
that
be harassed
offline?
in that way
May
again,
I?
please.
We could talk offline. It's,
Thank you.
okay, why don't we talk to your deputation first, and then any complaints you have, we talk offline, okay?
All right. I'm going to talk about my deputation today.
I'll start.
I spoke about an item that is very controversial, and it was captured by a lawyer, Karima Saad. She was able to capture about this incident that happens at 401 and the Avenue Road. We were in a situation where the City of Toronto Police blocked Avenue Road, and we cannot allow to go to the washrooms at all. I asked Chief Police Myron, why you are blocking the streets, why you're not making sure that people with disabilities like myself and many others have access to washrooms. We were told also that we cannot come back. It's not a secret that I am a supporter of Palestine, because I am an indigenous man, and we know how terrible colonization has been to my people. So what happened lately is that every time we go and protest any bridge around the city of Toronto, we are being told that Chief Myron has said that it is a danger to be standing on the bridges and carrying flags, et cetera, et cetera. I have a bad experience with the public safety officers at the DBP and Queen's Park and Queen Street, where I've been asked to that I had to leave the bridge. Here I am with two women, two Jewish activists, and myself at DBP and Queen Street. We are flying our flags in support of Palestine. And they say that if we don't comply, we are going to be arrested. Like, what is our freedom of expression? Why are we limited in showing our solidarity with people that are dying in genocide in Palestine? Mayor Shaw, this situation is frustrating because we want to express our views in the difficult situations that we are experiencing in the city of Toronto. And right now, the police union and Chief Morwin are using this excuse to expend more money in overtime pay for these officers. There are hundreds and hundreds of officers on every Sunday. And also we have asked the police chief, why don't you go and ask the feds to cover the expenses of those police officers? Or go to DAC 4, because one of the agreements is that they will be in contact with the province. So my question is, why we Toronto taxpayers are in the hook to pay for those $7.5 million extra in overtime? That shouldn't be the way, in my opinion. There are many ways we can reduce the cost of policing on protests by including traffic wardens that can direct the traffic, and they are paid less, but it's a good job still. And these officers are trained to control the traffic flow instead of having $120,000 office like the one on the screen, which costs a lot of money to taxpayers. And right now, we are in a situation where we need more housing for our refugees. We need more housing for our immigrants. And that is a problem that we have across the city. Mayor Chow, I'm also here to raise an important matter.
Is it related to this item on policing? Because
yes, because
the clerk is going to rule you out of order if it's not.
We were having a peaceful meeting at on a TCSC building, and police were calling. and I asked Chief Myron, why was the reason that you guys were calling? And they couldn't explain to me the reasoning. But the fact of the matter is, TCIC and Tridel have walked off the negotiating table on the community benefits agreement. We are in need to continue the conversations, but TCIC and Tridel has walked away, leaving us with no option but to ask the city ombudsman to intervene. And I have sent a letter to Adam Schaffler, one of your in your office, and also to Michael Hay to discuss this matter, because we cannot sign the community benefits agreement if we don't have Tridel and TCAC at the table. So it's very sad.
Thank you so much, Miguel, for coming in, and we hear you. Thanks very much. We have one more speaker. I believe you're here. Come on up. You have 5 minutes, sir.
I just want to say, by me speaking at this meeting, this shall not be deemed to be in any way my consent expressed or implied, in doing so is fraud. God bless His Majesty the King, and long live His Majesty the King. And let the record show that I do not consent to the warrantless searches taking place downstairs here at Toronto City Hall. So this is items about hate crime, hate speech. One thing I don't think people realize, though, is it was mentioned in Suresh versus Canada, Minister of Citizenship and Immigration 2002, where the Supreme Court of Canada said that this court has, it is true, given a broad interpretation to freedom of expression, extending it, for example, to hate speech and perhaps even threats of violence. So in this report, it mentions City Council requests the Toronto Police Services Board to create community safety zones. So I was thinking, wouldn't it be something if the board and Chief Demke were like, yeah, we'd like to help you all out here at the City of Toronto, create community safety zones. The problem is, though, is that we ran the numbers by our CAO here, and she told us that in order to create all these community safety zones throughout Toronto, we'd need an extra $12.7 million, because I don't know if you caught this. Oh, I thought that's supposed to, does that stop working? Okay, there you go. So there's the CAO, Savina. I declared my love for her the other month at the police board meeting. And I don't know if you caught this, Marichelle, but when she was here recently, she mentioned that we are, the TPS, we are, year after year, 99.99999, a lot of nines there, spent. Okay, so they actually spend their budget every year. And as thanks to Deputy Mayor McKelvey and Councillor Chang and CFO Stephen Conforti have established recently that this place over budgets, underspends, and then you transfer the underspend to your reserves and then pretend there's a deficit. So there's money there. For those who aren't aware, though, Chief Demke, during his monthly update at a recent meeting of the police board, said regarding this issue, "Let me be clear. We are resolute in our mission to ensure public safety and security while also ensuring that the constitutionally protected right to free speech and assembly is maintained. There are limits on rights. The right to safety and security does not mean people won't occasionally be uncomfortable when they hear things with which they disagree, and freedom of expression ends when it becomes criminal." Now, the point I want to emphasize here is where Chief Demke said, people won't occasionally be uncomfortable when they hear things with which they disagree. An example of that is Deputy Mayor Cole here knows he didn't like it a year ago at Audit Committee when I asked if it was true Dr. Davila's husbands received money from COVID vaccine makers. Because as Scott Duncan says, questions negate understanding. I don't know I just want to find out the truth. So in this report, it also mentions enhance and improve safety and security in community safety zones. It's important for me to know that Chief Demke remember who exactly is asking this of the TPS, an organization that uses the claw to throw out the belongings of homeless people. I also would like Chief Demke, would respectfully ask him to help the City of Toronto while he's at it in the creation of safety zones, were one, elderly people can ice skate at Nathan Phillips Square during the Mayor's Skate-a-thon without being harassed. 2, where people can exercise their freedom of expression in bringing a sign to a budget subcommittee meeting without the threat of violence being used against them. 3, Miguel can wear a t-shirt with advertising on it in City Hall chambers without the threat of violence being used against him. 4, where peaceful protesters don't have to worry about being assaulted at what turned out to be Mayor Tory's last council meeting, and where sociopaths then stood up and gave a standing ovation at how well City Hall security assaulted the peaceful protesters. 5, where Dion Renee can have her disability accommodation respected at City Council without the speaker first denying it 4 times. 6, where I myself can feel safe to speak at the TTC board without having to deal with Councillor Myers trying to violate my freedom of expression. And 7, something about and where people can feel safe to clap at these meetings instead of being made to feel intimidated to use, like Councillor Perks and Deputy Mayor McKelvey at these budget subcommittee meetings were telling us to use our jazz fingers or something like that. Well, like, what's that about? I've never heard anything like that. So, that's my time.
Derek, yeah, thank you so much for your time. And this item is in front of council right now, and move receipt. Councillor Ainsley,
Yeah,
thank
sorry,
you very
Derek, I
much.
can't read the bottom of your sweatshirt.
It was on the screen, Councillor. Yeah. Councillor
Well,
Bravo?
he asked a question. He asked a question.
I'm good now, thanks.
No, you asked the question, I'm gonna answer it. It says, is a modest property tax increase? That's what it says at the bottom of my shirt.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Ainsley. You moved receipt of this motion. A question, sorry, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And Councillor Bravo just moved adjournment. Thank you. All those in favor?